everybody got quiet. So it's 6:33, we're gonna get underway. We have a couple presentations tonight and then just some informational updates to let residents know about. We're gonna call the meeting to order. I'm John Davey, I'm the chair, again this year. We have our secretary, Rob Williams right here. Tim White, vice chair. Brooke Washburn, vice chair, is with us virtually. And John Resler had a scheduling conflict and our other vice chair. So I want to welcome everybody. A lot of people tonight. So we'll begin our meeting by calling to order and then adopting our meeting agenda if there are no objections from our officers. All right, we'll move right along. So the very first thing we do interacting with the public tonight is we provide an opportunity for public comment. If you have a comment on anything that's not on our agenda tonight, we'd ask you to grab, probably help if I turn my microphone on so the Zoom people can hear me, sorry. If there should be microphones on each of the tables or close by, if you need to make a comment, as long as the light's green, people on Zoom will hear you, the recording will hear you. We're not amplified in the room, so we want to hear you, speak loudly. There's a microphone up here at the podium if you're more comfortable with that. So with that, is there any public comment in the room tonight? Nobody has anything to say. Okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and ask our Zoom attendees, and I saw a hand go up. There we go, and it's Dan Mueller. I'm going to ask Dan, if you go ahead and unmute, you should be able to talk. We should be able to hear you.
I would like to hold a quick piece after the main speakers as well with regards to the hotel project.
Great.
I'll hold that for later.
Okay. Then if you don't have anything else right now, go ahead and.
Negative. Nothing right now.
Perfect. Is that too loud, by the way? So if there are no other public comments online, and I'm not seeing any, then the next thing that we have an opportunity to hear from Supervisor Communications. Hey, we're lucky tonight. We have District 1 and District 2 here tonight, as well as the District 1 and District 2 Planning Commissioners here tonight. So John, we'll go numerically. Do you have a microphone? Okay, cool.
Here, there it is. All right, so thank you for allowing us this opportunity to speak because I think it's important to have good communication. I'm going to keep it short because there's been a lot going on. We just had our community council meeting on Monday, so there's a lot of information there. The one thing that I'll tell you, and maybe Raphael is going to speak to this, I think that's really significant, is we've gotten to the point in the county of looking at how do we fund new roadways, road expansions, recognizing the growth that's occurring. And we've been talking about that for several years, and I think we finally come to the conclusion the way we approach that at the county level is going through what's called a master circulation and financing plan. That was set up for Missouri Flat Road years ago when Placerville was trying to encourage businesses and the proper kind of growth. And what it really does is it creates a direct set aside where a certain portion of the sales tax revenue and the property tax revenue that's non-retail stores stays within that community. It's like a zone of benefit, and those funds get applied for road improvements and other needed expansion, infrastructure, et cetera, to make sure that we don't lose track of the ability to continue to provide access and egress, effective circulation, and for the businesses, obviously, to recognize the benefit of coming and hopefully occupying parts of the business park at some point in time. So there'll be a lot more to come on that, but I think we've gotten to that point. We've recognized that really needs to happen. It would help facilitate things like the Costco growth and other things that are happening, other projects that you're probably going to talk to tonight. But I just wanted to let people know that we're not sitting in a void and saying, woe is us, how are we going to do this? We're just going to over impact the streets. We're going to try to create that funding mechanism with a master plan to make sure that this comes together in a better fashion. I can't guarantee you that it's going to be level of service D or anything else, because that's not what the county general plan requires, but we are at least going to make a concerted effort to try to make sure we reinvest in our community and make sure that that traffic situation doesn't substantially worsen, because that's what the general plan requires us to do. Level of service F, and you can't go beyond level of service F. So, and maybe Raphael wants to touch on it, maybe a little bit premature, but everybody asks, what are we going to do for all the traffic? What are we going to do for all the noise? This is an approach to try to address the traffic. So I'll leave it at that.
We will put Raphael on the spot. But it's his turn.
Did George get a microphone?
Okay, George.
All right. There's a lot of things that I've been working on, but one of the biggest issues that came across, which was a good thing, is Alex Padilla just passed the FEMA Improvement Reform and Efficiently Fire Act. This bill just got passed. It went through the House and then through the Senate. With my persistence, because I keep bugging them all the time, because FEMA has been a big part of Grizzly Flat. You knew that. And they didn't get the individual assistance there. So this new bill is a pre-deployment of resources before potential wildfire disasters, improved relocation assistance where people lose their homes, that they could relocate them and help them with the relocation, equity, tribal emergency operations centers, housing assistance. And that's one of the big issues, is making sure that they have assistance to rebuild. And then consistency in federal support for wildlife recovery and response speed and fire insurance. And they're working on to try to lower our fire insurance, especially everybody's been impacted by it. So this is a great thing for the state of California, but also for El Dorado County. So that's one of the issues that I've been working on. Finally, this got done. And then Kevin Kiley speaking on the House floor to try to get the individual assistance for the people in Grizzly Flat. He talked to the president personally, and all that documentation, the fire map and everything that came from me. So this is just a lot of things that I've been addressing, that we need to solve these problems. We also got, just recently, we got $2.8 billion was set aside for California and fire resiliency. And basically, hopefully we can get some of this money here from that, because 400 million went to the Forest Service to do projects. Mitigation, forest mitigation. It's been the biggest issue that I've preached over and over again, because forest has not been doing good forest management for a long, long time, decades. And so anyway, there's that 2.7 billion. So we're looking into get that, because we can help DOT, especially with the mitigation along our roadways, because 90% of the fire started at easements is what it does. So we're pushing that. And I've already talked to Brian about it. I think, Raphael, did you get that memo today from Brian Mullins or not? Okay. So this is a great thing. So we need to pursue that money to help, especially the residents that live here, and also this impacted all throughout our county. So anyway, there's a lot of things that I'm doing and pushing. So anyway, that'll tell you what's going on, what I've been doing.
Good news. So are there any questions for the Supervisor Heidel or Supervisor Turnbull in the room? You're so shy. I'm done at my projects.
The ones you're presenting.
Oh, my projects are paying for college. So I'll ask if there's any attendees in our Zoom meeting that want to ask any questions of the supervisors tonight based on what they've discussed. Don't see any hands up.
John,
All right.
I'll just chime in just
So
one
then,
quick.
we're going to move along. The next opportunity we have here, we have guest speaker tonight, and it's Rafael Martinez. I'm going to go ahead and throw this screen share up real quick. He's Director of DOT El Dorado County, and I believe he has some help tonight. But Rafael is going to have a discussion with us tonight about essentially transportation, circulation, roads here. You know, we want to talk around El Dorado Hills in the area. If you have questions, is it on, Mike? Cool, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and share this. Our camera's a little fuzzy tonight, so we will have a small screenshot in the corner, but we'll leave this up here for right now. And Rafael, thank you for coming down. We appreciate you scheduling this so far in advance.
Sure, no, not a problem. Thank you very much, John, and your committee. Thank you all very much for being here. As John said, my name is Rafael Martinez. I'm the Director of Transportation for El Dorado County. With me here today, I have Zach Oates, Senior Traffic Engineer, and Adam Bain, Supervising Civil Engineer. They oversee a lot of the traffic as well as development that goes on in El Dorado County, and they're basically going to assist me with any questions that you might have. I don't have a presentation for you today. I pretty much wanted to just kind of open this up to kind of a Q&A session for any of you who might have questions. Over the course of the last 6 months, there have been a lot of questions either regarding maintenance, regarding some developments, and so that's why I brought my staff here. Is because I definitely don't have all the answers, and so hopefully whatever I can't answer for you here today, my staff will be able to do that for you. So with that said, I will just give you a very quick overview first and foremost, talking about maintenance very quickly. As many of you know, we just finished up the surface treatment on El Dorado Hills Boulevard. from Harvard going north, and as well as the intersection at Saratoga. The portion that was done at Saratoga was a full-depth grind and pave. The subsurface underneath there was substantially failing and had a lot of troubles with underwater subsurface treatments that did not support the structural section. So we had to do a full depth. That's a much more costly type of application that has to be done for those types of resurfacing. And so then that portion was needed because it has a lot more traffic and has had a lot more impacts over the years. The portion that was done over here north of Harvard, that what is called a three-layer subsurface. Surface treatment. And the benefit of those is that you don't have to do a full depth, meaning the structural section underneath the road is still sufficiently has integrity, and so you have a lot of cost savings. We were able to do the entire stretch of El Dorado Hills Boulevard for the same amount of money that we did over here at Saratoga. Now, we do treatments such as the one that you saw north of Harvard with our SB1 money. That is gas tax money that we received from the state of California that was granted to all municipalities through the additional gas tax that we got charged in 2017. You have the original gas tax, and then we all here in California have to pay for an additional gas tax. And so that additional gas tax helps us out with a lot of the maintenance that we have in El Dorado County. Now, I do want to speak to something that Supervisor Huddle did mention, and that is the funding that we get for any maintenance and repairs that we have to do on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, yearly basis. And that is for the last, I'd say 10 to 15 years, we have been a lot more reactive to a lot of our maintenance protocols. And that's because over the course of the last 15 years, the state of California has seen a drastic reduction in gas tax, in revenues, and subsequently that has been seen in our budget that we received from the state of California. Furthermore, there were several bonds that the state of California had in 2010s that we no longer receive, and as well as what Supervisor Turnbull was saying, is all that federal logging fees that we used to receive back in the 80s and 90s, we don't receive anymore, and those were millions of dollars that we used to receive. So we have had a much more reactive type of policy. So it's basically, we waited until the potholes were actually forming and the alligator cracking was occurring before we would get out there. Now, two things are happening. First and foremost, I want to thank the supervisors because last year they decided enough is enough. They have taken a proactive approach. They dedicated $4 million of general fund, which hadn't been allocated to the Department of Transportation in over, I think it was 8 to 9 years. Basically, El Dorado County supervisors has said, well, you know what, you've got enough with what you receive in terms of your fees from the state. Well, that should be enough for you to do what you got to do. Well, it hasn't been, and it had been showing. And for the past 5 years since I've been at El Dorado County, I've been raising the white flag saying, hey, we can't continue down this road. We're getting behind the 8 ball. We're getting behind the point of no return to where now it's going to be 2 to 3 to 4 times more costly. We would have to do the same types of repairs that we did on the Saratoga intersection throughout all our roads. And we couldn't be able to do a surface treatment instead. And we would have to do a full depth reclamation. And like I said, that's much more costly. So I thank the supervisors for taking that proactive approach. And I'm encouraged by that attitude because that's the kind of leadership that we need in order for us to do the job that we need to do for our residents. The other thing is, as Supervisor said, creating a MCNFP, because similar to Diamond Springs, they had inefficiencies. They had failing level of services that were existing that could not be rectified with gas tax, road fund, which is strictly for maintenance. That is only for maintenance. The only maintenance I can do is with gas tax. There aren't grants for maintenance projects. The only time those come along is when big federal government expenditures come along, and they really haven't hit yet. And then any TIF, any developer-related impact fees that El Dorado County collects, that could only be for impacts that those developments create. So anything that is existing, such as Harvard, the high school, right now we have, my engineers and I are trying to work on a plan to try and make improvements there. And we're trying to scramble as to where are we going to get the money for that kind of mitigation. And we're scratching our heads because TIF can't pay for it, gas tax can't pay for it, but a funding mechanism such as what Supervisor Harder was talking about would be able to pay for it. It would pay for existing deficiencies. So I'm very encouraged by the board and their proactive approach to look for solutions to the problems that we have, not just in the future with development, not just with the money that I'm getting from the state for paving, but taking proactive approach to allocating money to the Department of Transportation, allocating the inception of funding mechanisms that will bring future improvements to our county and to our roadway infrastructure. So I'm sure all of you have a lot of questions. I'm not just here to talk about, one other thing regarding maintenance is the next area where we are going to be doing a surface treatment road rehabilitation this coming year is going to be in the St. Andrews Village community. That's where the road rehabilitation is going to be coming this year. Every year we allocate a community, a zone, a region, a corridor that is needed in El Dorado Hills as well as all the other districts. But that's just a large scale. We also do either ditching, roadway paving, pothole resurfacing, anytime the spot problems do come up as well. But in terms of our bigger, larger, more robust type of resurfacing, that's going to be in the St. Andrews Village community this coming summer. So I'd say by September, we should be completed with that. So with that said, I will open it up. Like I said, this is about questions for me from the public that they might have. If I haven't already addressed something, I'll be more than welcome to take questions.
I'm going to jump at the head of the line because I have a microphone.
Sure.
So just to be in front of it, I know that, and Adam was really generous in responding to some questions that community members south of Highway 50 had submitted. I want to say like in November, October, about Carson Crossing,
Yes.
the road, and the county accepting that road into the road system. You probably have more informed questions than I do. Did you want to direct anything right now? Because that was one of the things we had on the agenda.
Yeah, well, thank you. Just a preface,
Mhm.
Raphael, Adam, thank you for being so direct and so willing to provide us hours of time and energy. Both the gentlemen spent hours with us one day when they didn't have the time, quite frankly, on their calendar to walk through some of the issues, and they patiently listened. I'm not sure we walked away in total agreement with what we saw there, but we have been working toward finding a solution on those fronts. I do appreciate some of the progress, Adam, you reported the other day to me, that there's been some agreement with Lennar to, I won't say correct, but to complete some of the commitments they had in getting signage and other issues with Carson Crossing resolved. Now, that said, we still have an issue, obviously, to our mind,
Okay.
on noise mitigation.
Okay.
Right now, we are looking at a noise mitigation plan that goes back over 10 years. That, quite frankly, there wasn't even a single home constructed when that plan was developed. And I have to say, I'm biased because Carson Crossing is my backyard.
Sure.
So if you understand my bias as I ask these questions, please forgive me. But there are a number of things in that plan that are very clearly in these studies that are inaccurate for this time. Clearly, part of the segment that was defined in these studies called for the construction of multi-family houses, of which there are none in the heritage community. I think the second thing of consequence is that the study was based upon two-story homes as opposed to the single-story homes. And I guess the third thing is the grading of Carson Crossing, being above ground or right now being above eyesight versus other kind of issues. And I guess the final thing is the car and traffic studies, in which some assumptions were made about the number of trucks and other vehicles of that nature that might come on down. I believe next month you're planning to go before the Board of Supervisors to accept from Lennar Carson Crossing. For those of you who don't know, Carson Crossing is kind of a nice little sloop, little loop around two senior communities, Heritage and Four Seasons. At this point, it meets satisfactory needs for our population. However, going forward, given some of the other issues that we've talked about in previous meetings with regard to possible connections from Highway 50 and also the old Placerville Road connection down south below, given the issues we're now maybe looking at with regard to a possible distribution center down south, the issues that may come about in terms of diverting traffic onto Carson Crossing is, an issue that really has the community, members of my community, rather concerned. And before the county accepts ownership and take responsibility for ownership, including financing of Carson Crossing, I would ask that two things occur, or at least I'm not going to ask anything. I'm going to suggest, if I could, that two things might be considered. One, that an updated noise mitigation and traffic flow study be conducted before the acceptance occur. And second, that we step back, we know a little bit more about the distribution center and how trucks are going to come in and out of that center, and what that impact would have with the smaller tributaries, that those kind of decisions be discussed, understood, and the like, before we get into a situation where suddenly we find a sleepy little side road being inundated by trucks, especially going right down the center of the senior community. And I think I've said it.
Well,
Please comment. Yeah.
Sure, no, sure. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your openness to hear what the staff has had to say about working with Lennar. By all means, we try to work with developers to get them to recognize that they should take a pride in ownership in a community before it is finalized, because eventually it is ours. And then the heartburn, the headache that they are experiencing comes to us. So we do everything that we can within our purview, within our power that is legal, in order to make sure that they are abiding by all the conditions of approval of that development, all the legalities, government codes, the Subdivision Map Act, all the parameters that were imposed on them by either the Planning Commission or the board at that time. We make sure that we legally can enforce that, because we know at some point, if the intersection is at an unacceptable level of service, who's going to have to hear about it? If the roads are cracking and or the drainage facilities aren't draining right, who's going to hear about it? It's going to be us. And so by all means, we want to, and I encourage my staff to make sure that we look under every rock, under every culvert, and over every wall to make sure that it is either built correctly per standards or per the conditions. Now, as I stated earlier, it's legally. So there are some aspects such as different codes, different standards that are imposed on developers and parcels and applicants dependent on when those projects were adopted. So the codes and standards, what might be 5 years ago, 10 years ago, might not be the same ones that we are incorporating now. And there are aspects such as volume that differ because when we make when the projects create the traffic reports, they are making assumptions. And so we base our decision off of what we think using our, traffic engineering crystal ball to give us the best analysis that we can. Now, I got to tell you, the crystal balls that we use nowadays compared to the ones that they used to use 5 and 10 years ago are much better, but nonetheless, they're not perfect. And so I do know that there are some aspects that we could look into in terms of how we can get the developer to go a little bit above and beyond so that we don't have to take those types of burdens upon to ourselves. But in terms of your specific question regarding the sound wall, that one I am going to hand over to Adam because he is more of the planning realm, and the sound wall and sound analysis is more of a planning purview. And because I don't have anybody from planning here today, I'm going to kind of have him kind of take that over to the best of his ability, and then we'll go from there.
Before you do that, I'd like to
Yeah.
ask just a related question.
Sure.
Since we've been talking about zones of benefits and what's this, the master recirculation, John, help me?
Master circulation.
Airport financing plan.
That.
Okay, there is Carson Crossing was earmarked to become a 4-lane highway at some stage.
Uh-huh.
And when that occurs, there's going to be obviously a need to finance.
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Right now, the citizens of Heritage are bearing a very large Melrose burden, several $1,000s per resident
Okay.
for Carson Crossing and some of the other adjoining properties. There's also in place a zone of benefit associated with that. What, if anything, can you say, if in point of fact, the Carson Crossing does become a 4-lane highway, that the Heritage folks will not have to look at an additional burden?
So yeah, that's if it becomes a 4-lane highway.
That's a big if, yes.
Yeah, so it's still an if. But with that said, like I said, I'm gonna dart out this way. I'm gonna have him take over, and then we'll go from there.
As far as the assessment districts, in that, in order for there to be an additional assessment placed on parcels, there has to be a vote of the folks within that area. And most developments, when they come through and develop, they establish what the maintenance and oversight mechanisms will be, and they implement those community facilities district or other type mechanisms in advance. So there isn't an opportunity to come back later and try and add things to it. So if there's a concern that you may get hit with some type of future assessment, there's a process that kind of protects residents from that.
Well, Adam, in this case, there is a zone of
Yeah.
benefit in existence.
Sure.
It just hadn't been pulled down. The money has still been
Okay.
approved for some purpose.
Okay.
But I guess our question is, how do we get in front of that or really identify what that implication might be to the residents
Okay.
before it happens?
I don't have a great answer for you on that. There's a fund, those funds get set aside over a period of time to do ongoing maintenance and then ultimately replacement for things. So it's natural for those funds to accumulate over time and they get spent as things occur. And so theoretically, things have a shelf life. They only last for so long. And there has to be a reserve in place for when things eventually get to fail. So that's That's how that works. We've got an entire department in the office that deals with just those zones of benefits. And it's a very complex system, and I don't pretend to be an expert at it all. But there is a mechanism for that. It's also regulated and has to get audited, so that the funds are, make sure that they're getting collected appropriately, they're getting spent correctly. And if there is an overcollection of funds, then there's a refund at some point. But again, that's an area beyond my area of expertise. The question you had was about sound walls, and we've discussed this at length. And just for the general public's knowledge, when a development project comes about, the Carson Creek has a specific plan there that was done back in the late 90s that kind of takes a look at the overall project as a whole and takes a look at how it's going to be developed and what is necessary in there, how the roads are going to be structured, how the water, sewer, storm drain, all those things are going to be structured. And there's a set of criteria that are put forth in that specific plan as to how things are going to develop. And then as projects come along for in this case, residential developments, they take a look at the specific impacts of those and do a more refined analysis. So there is a traffic study for the Carson Creek development itself, but the noise mitigation in the study is basically for the homes themselves. It's not necessarily, you think of it in that particular way. So there was a traffic study done, or I'm sorry, a noise study done for each one of the 3 phases of the development that's built or partially built now. There are others that are in place for Unit 11, which is further to the south. So as they come along, they get evaluated. So they go out and do a noise study prior to development, and that's basically a noise model that, and it's acoustical engineers that do it. It's well beyond my area of expertise in the details, but they do put together a study, and they take a look at the sensitive receptors, which in this case is the homes, and then they take a look at the other noise factors in the area. In this case, Carson Crossing Drive is the largest one. Sometimes there are industrial impacts. There is an industrial use over in the business park that had to be evaluated and dealt with, and there's a noise easement disclosure that's for folks that are impacted by that. So there is a process in place. They go out and they do the analysis to begin with, and then they come up with recommendations to mitigate it. And sound walls are one of them. They can also use rubberized asphalt, open graded asphalt, some other things that take the road noise from your tires on the road and kind of calm them down and make them quieter. So our planning department goes through and reviews those noise studies. They have gone through and reviewed each of the 3 studies for the 3 developments. There was a couple of addendums to those studies. Mm-hmm. And they've all determined that while there is noise from the road, and they predicted what the speed of the traffic was going to be and what the volume was going to be, so they did go through and analyze that, and they came to determination that it's less than significant. Now that's a CEQA technical term. CEQA is the California Environmental Quality Act. And what they try and do is when they set a threshold for something, they say that we can't say that there's no noise, but there is going to be noise, but there's a certain amount that's allowable because that's how life works. But when you go beyond that, then you have to mitigate it. And in this case, it's 45 decibels or a change of 3 decibels or more if it's over that threshold. And that study has determined that it doesn't exceed those standards. And it was designed for the subdivision itself, but it understood that the road was going to be 4 lanes at some point in the future. So again, I'm not an expert in that area, and I can't go through and argue each one of those points, but we'd be more than happy to sit down and go through. And I apologize, it's taken us a while to dig through those. The file on that thing literally is like 14 feet long in the planning department. So we'd be more than happy to sit down and discuss it with you and explain what they've done. And if something's been missed, then that's something we can go back to the developer with. But at this point in time, Carson Crossing Drive was planned to be a county maintained road. We have an obligation to do that. There's conditions of approval on the development that dictate that we will do that. And so if there's something to be done with the sound walls that needs to get addressed, that would have to be done on the developer side, on the home side, with walls or whatever else needs to be done. It's not something that we can legally stop. Except we can't preclude the exception to the roadway over something that's on the residential development side. So more than happy to sit down and discuss it with you, go through those details, and if something's missed in there, we'll get together with planning and try and revise it. But but that's kind of how the process works. So that's, we wanted to make sure that we disclosed it to you so that you'd had questions about it. So that's why. I mentioned it.
Again, you've been doing an outstanding job keeping us informed.
I
You know,
appreciate
we're still looking at, so far, we have unit 2, but we don't have 1 or 3
Correct.
studies. The sound walls are non-existent in most of that area. And so I'm just bringing this thing
Sure.
up in the hopes that the county didn't find and wake up 2 or 3 years from now when it becomes necessary to expand Carson Crossing for whatever reason.
Sure.
That then suddenly you have 1,000 seniors with pitchforks at your door.
Pitchforks and hugs.
Hey, I like that idea. No, you've been extremely gracious in your conversations. We appreciate it and we'll continue those with you and answer any questions.
And we did have that on our agenda. We just want to make sure that that was covered. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. I had a question and then the room. It's me again, sorry. So on the zones of benefits and on the Melrose, those districts,
Yeah.
there are inflationary escalators on those, correct? Tied to the CIP?
For the zone of benefits,
Don't they have?
some do and some don't.
Okay, we have that problem with LLADs here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
we're discovering
it's unfortunate,
it's a big
yes.
deal.
It
So,
is, it is.
so as we go forward with new projects, we're identifying those things.
No, with all, so we've definitely learned from the lessons
Okay, I
of
just
our
wanna make sure, yeah.
mistakes that the county has made in past years and decades. And yes, now all new funding mechanisms do have escalators in them so
And-
that to adjust for the inflationary
Yeah, and then you're,
costs.
and you're compliant with Prop 218 and all the.
Exactly,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
100%, making sure that
Okay.
we are staying within,
Less of me,
Last
more
go.
of you. So a lot of hands. You want to go?
I want to go first.
okay.
Sorry, guys.
The second item on the agenda
Sure,
that we had specifically wanted you here for tonight
okay,
has to do with Costco Country Club Drive realignment
Oh.
and
Okay.
52.
okay,
Now, we found out at the community council meeting last Monday night that we had right in this place, that the latest proposal maybe says that there's not going to be a stoplight sort of in the middle of Silver Valley Parkway coming off that would turn left into the Costco site, and that maybe the main access road for Costco is going to be Clarksville Crossing, which right now is a very narrow 2-lane road that goes under the freeway.
okay,
It's also, a lot of the people going to Costco will be coming off from the Latrobe area, coming up White Rock, which is again, a 1-lane road in each direction for the most part. And I can just see a huge traffic cluster blank at that location. Can you tell us what the DOT is planning and maybe in discussions with the Costco and the EDH 52 development team as to what you're going to do in that area?
of course. So for those of you who don't know, there is this swath of land off of Silva Valley adjacent to US 50, between US 50 and the residential development and the school that is there north of it. And on one side, it's going to be a Costco. The other side, the applicant is still considering what they're going to be building there. But this project has been now in the works for almost, I think, 2 years. And because the reason why it's still in the works is because we are constantly pushing them, saying, no, you've got to do something better. No, you've got to look at more. No, you've got to reanalyze. No, you've got to come back with something else. By the way, we've got future impacts due to X, Y, Z, and D, and all of that is going to be giving you additional headache and heartburn. Oh, by the way, not you, but us, once we accept those projects into our maintained mileage and our system. And so then that's the reason why nothing actually hasn't I mean, they came here actually, I think it was about 2 years ago, and they
Yeah,
had some poster boards and they had some circulation of what it's going to look like, but that's all conceptual. It's when, the rubber hits the asphalt, pardon the pun, that we all sit down with them and then we say, oh, that's not going to work. Oh, what were you thinking there? That's not going to fly either. And that's the process we're in right now. It's the arm twisting, the bending, the discussions we're having with them to come up with what is going to be the best circulation for that location. I just had a meeting with both Adam and Zach this morning to make sure that we are finalizing what our best case and most cost efficient, most level of service effective is going to be for the realignment or the new alignment, that is, of Country Club. not only from El Dorado Hills Boulevard to Silva Valley, but from Silva Valley over to Bass Lake. So all of that, and because that was really kind of like a pie in the sky, it was literally a squiggly line in our general plan. Once that project came in, I tasked my staff to make sure we got to get this in the books immediately, because obviously El Dorado Hills is a great place to live, and obviously a lot of retail, commercial, and some industrial are saying, hey, you know what, this is a great place to work and have business and have jobs. So we need to start actually coming up with the alignments, with the circulation, with the network, so that they don't tell us what the alignment's going to look like, and then find out later on, oh, these lines don't connect, and we've got this all over El Dorado County. So that's why we haven't come up with anything as of late, because we're in the works with that. So I don't want to tell you that, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, because literally we are at the drawing board right now, coming up with what that's going to look like. So I can have Zach come up here right now and tell you what, the thoughts are in terms of the level of services, but really it could change within the next month, next 2 months, next year. So I can tell you, Tim, before we solidify anything, you guys will probably see me here, and I'll probably have a poster, and I'll give you a much better presentation as to what that final is going to look like.
We haven't heard from the applicant since we had that meeting
Yeah.
here. And then, the scoping meeting was tough because it was virtual, and that's unusual, right?
Yeah.
We've done a couple like that. That's tough. So our question, I think, at the community council we asked was if the EDH 52 portion of the development, because they're working together with their environmental review, if that changes from what's in the application, will there be another NOP, another scoping meeting? Or do they just proceed with, hey, we've changed the project, even though we've already had a scoping meeting, and we're still proceeding with our draft environmental? I don't know. If it's significant, will there be a second one? Or if it's just...
I mean, from a leadership position in the county, I would insist that they do, because
Sure.
it's going to be in their best interest, my best interest, all of these people's best interest, to
Yeah.
basically say, hey, let's talk about it, because when you work in a vacuum and then you don't fill people in and
Yeah.
you don't communicate, that's when people start getting suspicious. So that's the opposite of what I want, especially from my department. You guys can not trust the developers all you want, but I can tell you right now, when it comes to my department, we want to, and we will be as open as we possibly can to share what we can't do, as well as what the developers have planned and what we can share with you in order to make sure that they are doing what they have to do.
Okay.
To follow up on a scoping meeting, and I know that scoping is really a planning department function more than a DOT function, though you do contribute to it.
Yeah.
I think actually the project that we're going to discuss later tonight, the planning department has indicated they would like to continue with scoping meetings up in Placerville. Now, the one we're talking about is on Bass Lake Road. You're going to speak to it tonight, Mr. Mahana's project.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Having a scoping meeting with all sorts of wall boards and stuff like this up in Placerville for a project that is in El Dorado Hills is somewhat inconvenient for many people who live here who are working stuff to drive up the hill because it's county government up there. Hell, the fire department can make this meeting room available. There are other public spaces that could be available. Have the scoping meeting where it can be attended most effectively and efficiently by the people who are most closely going to be impacted by the bill.
Yeah.
And you can take that to planning and actually 2 members of planning are here tonight.
Okay.
Okay, we haven't had an update yet, so maybe you've already spoken.
And to Mr. Mohada and his associates' credit, that's why they're here. Because yes, they want to be good stewards of a community. They want to show that yes, they're listening. And for developers, they don't, unlike Josh, Pana, and Mr. Mohada, they don't get that. To them, they're like, oh, no, we gotta, keep things over here and not telling. What they don't realize, that's going to bring them much more consternation later on down the road, much more headache, much more problems, and frankly, it's going to be a poor design because then we don't get the input like we really should to get a feel for what the issues are. So that's where my staff and I have been pushing with the community, saying with the developers that you know what, doing this is kind of hard. Doing this open forum discussions is somewhat difficult, taking the hard questions. But in the end, we get a better project. We get what's better for the community. We get the involvement from the community, and then they feel like they are part of what is their community that is developing. So I get it. My staff gets it. The board gets it. Planning Commission, they get it. Now it's for me to beat that across the head to them for them to get it. Well, Josh gets it, but I don't know about I don't know about the rest of them.
Okay, we're quiet now.
All right.
Hands up. Yeah, I guess I'm going to the front of the room. There's 1, 2, 3 right here, then we'll get going back. So do you have a microphone nearby? Oh, there you go. As long as it's
One on
green.
each table, just pass it down, push the button until the green light comes on.
You can put it on the table. Yeah,
There you
I'm
go.
on green.
Oh, it's green.
there you go.
Is it working?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
No,
that's
no,
fine.
you're
That's
fine.
good.
We'll hear
It,
That's
it's
good.
for the online people to hear.
Yeah.
So you're good.
Um, my question, I'm Lindell Price and I live in Cameron. And I'm not a recreational bicyclist, but I use a bicycle for transportation. And I see on some of the upcoming plans, there are bikeways and that's, I am assuming part of what the County Department of Transportation addresses. So my question is, what steps is the county taking to ensure that bicycling facilities, bike paths are built to a good, safe standard? And one of the things I'm particularly concerned about is the use of obstacle posts, which are sometimes also called bollards. And a couple of things from the AASHTO Guide for the Development of Bicycle Facilities 2012 that are relevant, says the routine use of bollards and similar barriers to restrict motor vehicle access is not recommended. And farther on, they mention that a preferred restricting entry of motor vehicles is to split the entryway into 2 sections separated by low landscaping. And I'm wondering what steps the county is taking to ensure that bikeways that are built, maintained, improved, meet a good standard.
Sure, Lindell, thank you very much for that question. As a matter of fact, El Dorado County works very closely with, I'm sure you know them, El Dorado County Transportation Commission. They have a master plan in terms of what the circulation is going to be for all trails, bicycles, pedestrian access is going to be in El Dorado County. And furthermore, the state of California is a huge proponent of any new facilities that they have to have some kind of bicycle pedestrian facility aspect of it, whether it's a class 1, class 2, heaven forbid if we have to, we'll do a class 3. We don't like class 3s. But now even class 4s are being recommended throughout, and that it's its own bicycle facility that's adjacent to the roadway. And so we work very closely with them to make sure that anytime a new project comes in, that it is in line with whatever El Dorado County Transportation Commission has. Furthermore, our Planning Commission is always looking to aspects of where can we incorporate more bicycle friendly aspects, because the state of California's new criteria for CEQA is vehicle miles traveled. It's no longer level of service. Level of service is for the delay of vehicles getting from point A to point B. So if it has a poor level of service F, let's say, that means you have a lot of delays. It takes you a lot longer than it should be for you to get from point A to point B. And so now that it's vehicle miles traveled, that essentially is saying, the state of California is saying, no, you will not have vehicles incorporated as part of your primary source of transportation. It should be a correspondence of vehicle, transit, and bicycle. So we are always trying to reduce that vehicle miles traveled, or increase that is, so that we can reduce level of service, but also it improves our CEQA requirement with the state of California. So by all means, for us, in order to abide by CEQA, anything that we can do to incorporate more class 2s, class 1s. And I'm working with El Dorado Hill CSD to incorporate more class 1s in El Dorado. And we're actually going into partnership with them to see where, because now there's a maintenance issue as to who's responsible for what. But I can tell you that, yes, that is a big push from the state, from El Dorado County Transportation Commission, from the CSD, and from the public. They want more ped and bicycle facilities. So yes, Lindell, most definitely. Next, I think Stanley has a question.
Such a gentleman.
Yes, he is.
I was wanting you to go back to the Costco area and speak
Yes.
towards the current traffic issues that you are aware of. I can tell you as a driver what all the problems are on that road. But
sure you
I would
can.
like to hear from the expert, and I'm hoping that you can go from, I'm going to butcher what street it is, but it's the one entering the town center, White Rock, and you can either go
Okay,
towards
yeah.
Blackstone
Yes.
or Target, all the way to Harvard, which you had mentioned is it Harvard, where the middle school is?
Oh,
Because many travel that entire section of Silva Valley.
yeah,
Silva
it's,
Valley Parkway,
yeah,
all the way
it's-
to the middle
it's
school.
Yeah,
Vine,
sure.
it's Vine to, yeah, you're talking about along Silver Valley, right?
Yeah, so
sorry.
past Oak Meadow, first of all, that giant turn.
Yeah.
From Vine, and then Oak Meadow, Silva Valley, the middle school. If you could speak towards what you know are already the traffic issues on that road that we already deal with that are a problem.
So and this is the one aspect that I get a lot of questions about, and I try and answer it as best as I can because unfortunately, so, okay, let me back up a little bit. I started off with Lindell when I told her about level of service and vehicle miles traveled. California used to have level of service as our criteria to measuring what the impacts of traffic were on a roadway system, from a developer, from commercial, retail, whatever. Meaning if it takes me right now 10 seconds to hit this signal and then make a left now, and now once a project comes in, it takes me 30 seconds, the level of service degraded and went from an A, let's say, to a C or a D. So we are measuring both. And I can tell you there are aspects of it that will trip where it actually is failing, where it is actually not going to be acceptable level of services. And then what we do is we work with them and we say, okay, it's going to fail. You got to rectify it. Now, unfortunately, that level of service criteria is not set by us here in El Dorado County. That is set by Caltrans and by the Highway Design Manual through the federal government as to what that criteria is. Because as you can imagine, you've got metropolitan cities and then you've got rural settings. And so then they had to come up with what an acceptable level of service is, and it's somewhere in the middle. And so for us, what is an acceptable level of service in a rural area is, and what is acceptable to, let's say, or unacceptable to somebody in a city would be very acceptable. And so then unfortunately, with a lot of developments that do come in, it does degrade the level of service. It brings it down from, let's say, an A, B, or C down to a D or an E. And for a lot of people that is unacceptable, unfortunately, that we have no control over that. Now, we can try and make those level of services as least impacted or less degraded as possible by coming up with different circulations. So we tell them, hey, how about you put a left turn pocket here or add bike lanes here. And then if we have bike lanes then or transit options, we might be able to reduce vehicular volume at this location. Or if we have people coming in out of here or right turns in and right turns out of there, those are all the scenarios we're working with them right now so that we don't get just the bare minimum. So let's say, for example, in El Dorado County, our threshold is level of service F. So what they do is they bring the level of service down to an E minus, minus, minus. And so it's like, they're like, hey, we meet the level of service criteria. We're like, no, that's horrible. An E minus, it does not satisfy what my residents want. Yeah, sure. The calculation came out 2 + 2 = 4, But in our standards, that's not acceptable. So that's what we're working with right now, where we're trying to tell them, hey, instead of going this way, instead of coming that way, instead of just right off the freeway going straight into your Costco or into the other side, how about you encourage them to do this or go the other way or go that way, or have Country Club instead, so that now I'm bringing in a pressure relief valve from a different location, so they're not all on Silva Valley or Clarksville Crossing. Have trouble saying that about 3 times fast, so that it's not all being impacted and funneled into one location. So that's what we're working on. I'd love to tell you, well, I can tell you, the intersection where Clarksville Crossing and Silva Valley meet, that right now is failing. 100% with them coming in, it's not gonna work. So we're working with them to tell them, hey, we wanna come up with a country club, and we wanna put it far enough away from your development so that it's not the intersection, driveway, it's not gonna work. So we're working with them right now to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Okay, can I ask a follow-up
Yeah.
question? How do you guys gauge and grade an intersection like turning into Oak Meadow? There's no light there. It's a left-hand turn off of Silva Valley into Oak Meadow, unprotected, and it's only busy during drop-off and pickup times. But it's failing at drop-off and pickup times.
Ooh.
So how does that?
Yeah, so I was gonna hand it over to Zach, but hold on. As soon as you told me the school, I'm like, oh, now I know what you're talking about. Okay, so that is the big contentious issue right now, is the fact that from a director's perspective, there's no way that's gonna work with the school right there. So they've got to fix that 100%. And they're saying, no, that's your problem. And I'm saying, no, that's going to be your problem. Because then it's going to be my problem. Then I'm going to make sure it does not become my problem. So yeah, that's what we're arguing right now. And we are coming up with a realignment so that that issue doesn't occur. So that's one of them. Now, legally, can I force them to do that? No. They can do whatever they have to do within their footprint to make their footprint work. But I'm telling them, yeah, guess what? The parents are gonna come out of the woodworks with the torches and the pitchforks, and I'm not gonna hold them back. I'm just gonna let them at you. So if you really wanna go that route, nobody from here is cut from Costco, right? Please. Just checking. Okay, good. I'm gonna let them have it. So that's the case. That's what I'm working out right now. I don't know if I was supposed to say it or not, but anyways, I said it's out of the bag, so there we go. So that's point of
But
contention.
let me add to that. We met with the school. Raphael and I went in, we looked at what do we do to mitigate the impacts? How do we provide a second access to Oak Meadow School? How do we provide a staging area where the cars can line?
Yeah.
How do we provide additional parking? And they had a plan and we had a plan and we're still talking about
And we're
this. So
still
that would
talking
be
about
part of the impact mitigation that would have to go along with this site. How that all gets paid for is a TBD.
Yeah.
But maybe some of those funds could come out of an MC and FP type of project. But we have addressed it ahead of time with the school district, with their leadership down there to
Yeah.
try to figure out what they wanted. It turns out there's a piece of property owned by Parker Development Company between where this project is. We actually involved them in the discussion. Are you willing to work with us? But every time you get 3 or more parties involved, those discussions become somewhat complicated. But we didn't ignore it. It's not finalized yet, but I'm hoping
No,
we can make
it's not.
progress there.
It's not. And once it is, once we start getting close, I will circle everyone back up. All right. You got it.
Next.
Yes, Stanley.
My name's Stanley Price. I live in Cameron Park. I'm a bicycle advocate. On the Town and Country Village diagram, it shows a future country club drive that obliterates a portion of the Pond Road. How wed are you to that alignment?
The country club, the
It's between Bass Lake and El Dorado Hill.
so I believe that if it's on anything that is
You're not, it's on this map here. Okay,
That's the wastewater
figure 16, it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is, that's wastewater.
Yeah, but it shows future country club drive and
That's in the CIP, the Future Country Club, that segment.
so that's what I was speaking about earlier. So whatever you see there, that's just a squiggly line on a map. My staff and I are working right now on what the new country club alignment's going to look like. And I can tell you right now, it is going to have very wide class 2 bike lanes. In some portions of it, we might even have a class 1 as well. So we are currently in design for that right now.
yeah, I'm concerned about the historic pavement of the original Lincoln Highway.
Oh, that portion. Okay, so that
But-
you will be able to address with the applicant that's going
Yeah.
to be talking later on
When they
today.
come up,
So
let's
yeah,
ask.
that and then so yeah.
Anyway.
Save that for them.
Okay, back to Costco.
Sure.
You're working with them. Is there a pedestrian and bicycling circulation plan for those projects? And I'm including pedestrian circulation within the parking lot. I sometimes park my car and walk somewhere, and
Sure.
it's not comfortable in many places. So
Yeah.
everyone is a pedestrian in a parking lot, and there should be much safer access to the store from the parking lots. So that's one element of the pedestrian circulation plan, but the
Sure.
other is from transit to there and
Yes.
people who want to walk
Yes.
to get there, and also bicycling. I think you're calling it the Clarksville Crossing.
Yes.
When they built Silva Valley, they offered that as a bicycling path
Okay.
alternative.
Okay.
And it's hard to get to, it's hard to cross there.
So there is definitely an aspect of bicycle and pedestrian as part of this project. Any new projects that are coming into El Dorado County have to have a pedestrian and bicycle aspect of it. Now, in terms of the pedestrian access within the parking lot, it's strangely enough, as this might seem, that is actually a planning's purview. It's not in DOT's wheelhouse, just because our responsibility is anything within the public right-of-way. Once it's in a parking lot, it's actually now the applicant's responsibility, which is now in building and planning's department. But I can tell you that we are working with them with their circulation, because if their circulation doesn't work well in the interior, meaning people are crossing in front of the main entryway to get into Costco, and that's the entrance off of Silva Valley, then yes, that's going to cause a backup, because now people are waiting for people to cross, and they're backing up, into the driveway, backing up into Silva Valley, backing into US 50. So by all means, we are making sure that we collaborate with the planning department and to make sure that that is going to function correctly. And I will pass along to Rob Peters, who's in charge of that project, to make sure that he is taking that into consideration. And as for pedestrian and bicycle, Silver Valley will have it. Clarksville Crossing will have it. Country Club will have it. Any aspect, especially because it's next to the school, we want to provide safe type of pedestrian and bicycle accesses into anywhere where we have residential and the schools nearby. So by all means, yes, we are going to be looking into that.
We've mentioned these things early on in prior projects, and they say, oh, it's too early to do that. And then after it's all planned out, it's too late to do that. So don't.
It is, I don't know who told you it was too early to do that. It's never too early to look into those types of aspects. So thank you very much, Emily. I greatly
Let
appreciate it.
me add, the formal environmental analysis has not started. Once that starts, there'll be an initial study, they'll have some initial findings, and then they've got to go through and develop the whole plan, including circulation, a lot of other elements that are associated with CEQA, right? And those documents become public review documents. APAC will have access to them. So that process, it's great for DOT to start those discussions now because you can do the pre-planning,
Yeah.
but it's not to the point that it's mature enough yet to let the public look at it. But it has to be evaluated, it has to be presented to the public. So that's the time to engage.
Definitely. Thank you.
The full EIR, as I understand it, full EIR. That's the latest I heard, unless you guys have heard something different.
So, thank you. Backler, you've had your hand up, but you've been very patient. Listen to me too much. Okay, do you have a microphone nearby? Okay, awesome.
The question I have is the big black box with this Costco project is what's going to happen across the street, across Silver Valley. The notice of preparation has it as community commercial, pretty low intensity, a lot of RV storage and self-storage and not a lot of going on there. But if that changes to apartments, residential, for instance, which it can now without even a rezoning under SB 8, how does that affect what you're trying to do now, your traffic planning right now? That could be a big difference in traffic generation and where people are going and vehicle miles traveled and the whole business.
All right, now I can finally have Zach come up here. Zach is my senior traffic engineer, so he can address that a lot more eloquently than I can. So.
Great. Yeah, that's a great question. So we've done a couple rounds looking at the traffic studies and different configurations where traffic signals might go, where they won't go. With the uncertainty on the other side there, on the AKT side of the development, on the east side of Silver Valley, they're still deciding what that's going to be over there. There have been some assumptions that have been made, conservative assumptions, so that we don't underestimate the volume of traffic and find ourselves in a spot where things get built and all of a sudden we're saying, uh-oh. But that being said, with the decisions they still need to make, we're kind of waiting on them to decide which direction they want to go, and then we'll absolutely study the traffic levels and circulation and everything that goes along with that, based on what their project will look like.
And then, with that said, if then they change the usage and it is of higher intensity, then they have to redo their analysis all over again, both environmental and traffic. So it does behoove them to come up with what will be the maximum number of impacts of vehicular volume, because they can always go less impacts and less volume, but they can't go up. So they are designing for worst case scenario.
For all this?
They are, so far. Thank you, Zach, appreciate it.
Steve, I see your hand. You got a microphone nearby?
I'm probably right in front of you. Evening, my name is Steve Ferry, and I live here in Heritage, the seniors project down here south of the business park. Let it go. Again, my name is Steve Ferry. I live down by the business park, and I'm involved with a group up in Placerville called Taxpayers. And we're interested in what money gets spent and what it gets spent on. In particular, we heard tonight that you got a beneficial $4 million that came to the traffic department to improve roads. And what my question is we would like to get a cost benefit analysis to show what it looks like after you analyze what you did. So for instance, we think that asphalt can be one type that you put in, or a different type, or a different type. So you might have been able to cover 3 times the amount of roads, or 10% more roads with a different kind of asphalt. And so I'm asking you tonight, because I know you work for the Board of Supervisors, you don't work for the CAO. So instead of sending something to me, would you please send a cost benefit analysis on 3 projects inside of El Dorado County, preferably El Dorado Hills, to our members of the Board of Supervisors. So my member of the Board of Supervisors can actually call me and say, Steve, come up and get it. I've got it for you. I would really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So you're asking for a cost benefit analysis of some of the projects that we've done in El Dorado Hills? Yeah. Okay, sure. All right, you got it.
Yes and no questions are the best. Who else has their hand up in the room? Or up here in front? Do you have a microphone nearby? Here. Now you do. Thank you.
I was just wondering with the Project Frontier, I guess that's the name of it?
Yes.
Project. So what are where are you at with that kind of from a high level perspective? Where are you at with Latrobe Road with that project? Also, is that project going to connect to Carson? Carson Crossing?
So currently, that parcel does not connect to Carson Crossing. Its connection is going to be off of Latrobe. And in terms of that project, its footprint and its impacts were studied as part of a specific plan that was created before I was in El Dorado County that took into account a specific plan. So we have the county's general plan that looks at the big, very big ultimate picture for El Dorado County and where land usage is going to be and homes and retail and businesses. And it says we kind of give general estimates as to what the impacts are going to be and where everyone's going to live and work. And then we have specific plans generally for, okay, we have a generalized area that we want to study because we want to master plan it out to make sure that since, the 35,000 feet in the air is kind of, spitballing.
So what year was your specific plan?
When was that specific plan done for that?
4 to 88.
So at that time, they calculated a certain volume, a certain number of traffic volume to be on Latrobe Road. And so if that Project Frontier doesn't meet that threshold, it exceeds it, then they can't go in. So we haven't been given the official, or have we? Do we receive the, I think actually we did, didn't we? Just recently, or was that just the application? Have they given us the actual traffic analysis report already? Oh, okay. Yes. That's why I bring him with me. It reminds me of where we're at. So currently it is under review. If it doesn't meet the volume that is part of the specific plan, meaning that is, if it exceeds the threshold of what the traffic impacts or the volume is going to be, then they don't get approved.
Well, and let me add to that. Here's a copy of the application for Project Frontier. And in the questionnaire that the applicant put in, he addresses traffic as question 27. He says, the project developer proposes to add a traffic lane in each direction from Golden Foothill Parkway to the southern property line of the project, at which point it would taper to a single lane. So what roads it's called?
Well,
what's their street called roads?
No, it's Royal Oaks.
Royal Oaks.
It's the southern entrance to Blackstone.
Yeah.
That's where their main entrance will be, but adjacent to that is Wetzel Oviatt Road, which the high school district owns 200 acres on the south side of that. That's technically the southern end of their project property.
Right.
So it'd be an additional travel lane in each direction up to about Wetzel Oviatt, and then it would start to taper back to the existing 2 lanes, 1 in each direction. That's what they're talking about.
And 2 stoplights, one at Royal Oaks and another at that very southern district, a southern part of the
Wetzel
boundary.
Oviatt, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what in their application, they have mentioned that.
Yes. So that's what currently is under review right now, is whether their traffic analysis coincides with the specific plan for El Dorado Hills Business Park. And if it does, then that's the first step. And if it doesn't, then it's back to the drawing board for them.
1980 was 43 years ago, so do we think that plan needs to be updated?
That is not up to my decision. If anything, the volumes were probably lower then than they are now in terms of the thresholds for level of service. I would have to compare what was studied and used as a threshold for level of service then as to what we're thinking and what we do today to see if there's the apples to apples and see if what the differences are. But from my previous examples and experiences is some of the older specific plans were using much lower thresholds. So it all depends. I'd have to look at it.
So not to, because it's a project that, they're gonna be here next month, so we'll talk about that as we move towards the end of our meeting. And just because we're valuing DOT's time tonight, we'll talk a little bit about what we've talked about with that applicant. We'll let you know when we get to that part at the end. It's very informational. They project that their traffic analysis, is they're significantly lower than what the 1980 whatever EIR determined would be the max build out. So they're saying it's well below the residential project that they had proposed, which was also below that analysis. So, but we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah.
But it's not official yet because we don't have it in front of us to really to discuss. They'll be here next month.
Yeah.
We can ask all those questions.
Okay, I had one other question on your traffic studies. What do you look at when you're evaluating impacts? Are you looking at approved developments? Are you looking at developments where there's a proposal or approval, or what gets counted?
Essentially, everything gets counted. We look at the existing circulation, the existing volumes, traffic impacts. Then we look at the project all by itself in terms of what its volume impacts, accesses are. And then we combine them, not only when the project is first opens, but then in the out years. We look at 10, 20, 30 years out to see, okay, is it matching with what we calculated 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and is it meeting up with other developments that have come in most recently? Is it meeting the acceptable thresholds? So we just don't look at each project in a vacuum. We actually compare it to the surrounding area, to the region, and make sure that it is going to function. That's one of the reasons why Costco, we're still working with them. I don't want to say struggling with them, but working with them to get them to recognize that, hey, yeah, this will work, but let's make it a little bit better.
So if you have parcels where there's no proposal yet, maybe they're zone C1 or C2 or light industrial, are you anticipating what build out would be when there would be?
Yes.
Somebody there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are. Yes, very good question, and not very many people. Yes, we are anticipating that it's all built out. They come in and everything, what that is zoned for, what that is zoned for, what that is zoned for, all of it comes in exactly as it's zoned. And if those parcels change, then it's a zone amendment, and then those are very difficult to do.
Raphael, let me add one other quick thing. The El Dorado Transportation Commission did a specific study of the El Dorado Business Park. That was done in August of 2021, where they looked at the conditions of circulation. Part of that was how much pavement has to be replaced, et cetera. But it does show in there this de-annexed in 2018 property that we're talking about, which is where Project Frontier is. So there is a lot of information out there. I recognize it's hard to get to, but we can certainly provide it to APAC. You guys may have it on your website already. Did you put that one on?
It's an old document, new document?
No, August of 2021. I mean, it's pretty recent.
And it might be.
But it was done by Fair and Peers in conjunction with our planning department. I know DOT was involved, but that's a good resource to look at what's going on in the business park and what's the planned transportation for the business park only. But obviously it gets into adjacent
Actually,
communities a
had a
little bit.
discussion, didn't they come and make a presentation? Talked about that analysis.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, good.
So,
But one more resource, that's all.
Yeah.
and if it's not there, it'll be there, this week. You have a microphone, you ready to go? If it's green, it's ready to go.
There it is. Last time you were supposed to be here, but scheduling, and I think we did a Zoom or we did a microphone. but
Probably, yeah.
We're talking about White Rock Road, the bottleneck crossing Latrobe.
White Rock El Dorado, but that's not the bottleneck.
Yeah, CVS.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
I think you said your plan was to address that in about 10 years. It was on your 10-year plan. It was pretty far out. Does that change now with all of what's being proposed?
Okay, I think I know what I was probably implying on, and that is the fact that White Rock isn't to its full roadway width between Latrobe and US 50. So, yeah, so that part is in our 10-year. Now, obviously, if we have something that changes, then we change. So right now, we don't have any plans for Latrobe to get widened to 4 lanes. But if this,
White Rock.
White Rock, I'm sorry, but if,
JBA.
yeah, but okay, let me take that back. We do have it planned if everything comes in, but meaning if currently, if none of the parcels come in, then there's no need right now because it's operating at an acceptable level of service.
Two segments. Connector
Yeah.
takes it up to Latrobe Road.
Yes.
So that part is pre-planned, pre-engineered, ready to go.
Actually, they all are. It's just, we don't do any, which one?
Between Latrobe Road and Silver Valley Parkway, that section that goes down to 2 lanes past the mobile home park and stuff.
It's planned for 4 lanes.
It's planned for, but there's no plan, it's in the CIP, right?
Yes.
If you look at the CIP, that puts 10 years out. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, because the reason why it's because it's not operating at an unacceptable level of service. Yeah, but see, but the thing is.
I'm going for the proactive part here instead of the reactive part.
So that's a very good, so here's the problem with that is the fact that we got Costco, we got, actually the intersection of Latrobe and White Rock that. Them. We have all these developers, and they happened 2 years ago, and or a year and a half ago, and they still haven't started construction yet. So we build as soon as we actually start seeing sticks, we start seeing the volume, we start seeing the increase. Because if we go off of rumor or hopes and wishes and a prayer, well, then next thing you know, we've got all this massive infrastructure, a lot of debt, and actual no projects to include because they were just hoping and wishing and praying. So we start building once we know for a fact that we make plans and we make sure we secure the right of way so that if they come in, we don't have to do eminent domain, that it's already there, we secure it. So the plans are there for the build out. If all the parcels were to come in, we plan for, either the 2, 4, 6, 5 lanes that we need. We plan for it, we secure the right of way. Then once all those parcels start to fill in, and once the level of service starts to fail, or starts to degrade, then we start, before it gets to level service F, that's when we want to try and make the modifications. So that we're not prematurely, for us to build, let's say, a 6-lane on Latrobe going south to Amador County. I'm sure 50, 60, 100 years from now, it might be needed, but it's sure not needed now. So if we were to build it right now and saying anticipation for that, people look at us like, what the hell did you build this for? So we try and build for what we know for a fact is coming in, and then what we have the funding for. And then once we start seeing those thresholds meet our levels. So that's when we start building stuff.
Yep. You have a microphone back there? Can somebody pass the microphone back? And then after this one, we have 2 people that have been waiting online forever, and we've taken way too much, way more time than we planned. That's my fault. But we're gonna finish with this one here in the room. We've got 2 online.
I do have a question on Silver Valley from Latrobe to the freeway. There's that little section of affordable housing. Are you guys going to be taking that out? Because there's no way you can have 4 lanes or anything the way it is now.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
The mobile home park?
Yeah. There are phases that we plan on building, widening out White Rock. And currently, if we were to have to build to the full build out, there is 1 home that would be impacted. So that is true. And I don't take eminent domain very lightly at all. As a matter of fact, I try and avoid it at all costs. Unfortunately, 95% of all the roads that are built in El Dorado County at some point had an eminent domain process. Believe it or not, that's how roads get built. Is it belongs to somebody who owns property, and then as population grows and growth grows, then a municipality determines, well, we need to build a road here, and unfortunately, somebody owns this property. And unfortunately, somebody wasn't thinking and wasn't planning very well and allowed for one home to be placed within what that right-of-way footprint is going to sit. Now, as I said earlier, it's not needed now, and there is stages, there is phases that needs to be widened to. So we would hopefully work with the roadway width that we have now, and then work with the homeowner when the time comes and it's absolutely needed, that we can come up to an amicable agreement in terms of what we need to do to provide circulation for the community. So that's my answer to that location.
So I'm going to ask Brian to unmute. You've been waiting a very long time, and we tried to get the room first, then get to online. So Brian, if you're ready.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we appreciate your patience.
Yep, thank you. And I'll try to speak quickly given the time constraints. So I originally called with one thing regarding the Costco development and the flow of traffic. And I did hear a lot of your answer regarding many studies that still need to be done. One key element I just want to make sure to call out is any supply trucks that they're going to be running at night. If you just simply look at the direction of where they should be going when they're coming off of the 50 from the Sacramento direction, they need to be turning right, not left. It's a big old, everybody knows the geography there. Semi trucks are going to echo off those canyon walls. We already hear all that traffic very, very loud. So if those semis are running left towards Oak Meadow when they get off the freeway, that's going to be a nightmare all night long for all the residents in that region. Now, that was my original thing, but over the course of listening to this meeting, one woman up front very appreciatively called out the traffic concerns regarding the Oak Meadow School. And I'm not quite sure I agree with the answer in regards to, hey, we tell Costco they need to address this, they put it back on us, and we tell them that, hey, these parents are going to come out with pitchforks. That's funny and all, but at the end of the day, Costco dismisses the parent groups. They don't have any authority. There's no power there. And we've already tried working with Amy Frith, who's also on the call, and she's been fantastic about trying to organize things. We've already been blown off. So we need, ideally, if there's representation that works with transportation and all these different things, a little bit more of power in terms of ensuring that, because it's already a nightmare. And to that parent's comments earlier, it's going to get really, really bad. And we've got people parking along the road where there's no parking. You got kids that might be running around. This is a recipe for disaster. And my point is, it would be much better if we had an organized response in terms of addressing what's going to happen with Oak Meadow with that versus a grouping of parents and pitchforks, because that I think Costco dismisses that a little bit too easily.
No, thank you, Brian, so very much for your comments. As I mentioned to Stanley earlier, it's never too early to bring up comments, suggestions, and ideas because right now it's just on paper. So we could change things that's on paper. Once they start building stuff, then that's it. We're done. It's no turning back. So we want to try and fix the issues that you foresee, that we foresee. As Supervisor Heidel said, I already met with Oak Meadows School and got their input, because you're right. That is not working now, let alone bringing in a big retail such as that size. It's not really going to work. So I jest only because I want to get them to recognize that, but I'm hoping that I stop it before it gets to that we as your representatives for the El Dorado County, that we do our job and get them to recognize what they have to do in order for us to get to a point where it's not the pitchforks and the torches. So thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
And that's what I would hope for, is that it would be a joint effort between parents and yourself. We could certainly lend our voices to you to help bolster that. But just so long as it's not left up to a grassroots group that can easily be dismissed by these large organizations.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for your patience, Brian.
Thank you.
So, Brooke, oops, sorry, I pushed the button there for you. Thank you for waiting, Brooke. I'm glad you're here tonight, and I know you have some pointed questions, I'm sure.
No, thank you all for the time. I just wanted to, one follow-up on the Costco. I appreciate that the school has met and has a plan, but I know that there's a lot of local leagues, such as Little League, soccer, programs that also use the school, and their impact might also be considered, because I know the traffic is also an issue on the weekends with regard to their events that they have. So maybe also including those groups in conversations and the traffic impacts there. But okay, so my main baby here, and I know we've talked about it before, is that Saratoga and Finders intersection. The first thing I wanted to bring up was the fence is down directly across, implying that there was some kind of significant accident. And I was wondering if DOT had any information on that.
Did you say on the fence?
Yeah, so there's a chain link fence that runs along Saratoga Way on the side that's adjacent to the freeway. And the fence has been utterly destroyed. It's at least 2 to 3 panels are completely depressed all the way down to the ground, like somebody ran through the fence. And it hasn't been repaired. It's been in that state for about a month now. I was not aware of a significant accident, but obviously there's evidence of it, and there were tire tracks that went through it. I know that was one of the conditions, was whether or not we had met enough accidents at that location. And then I have personal knowledge of another accident where somebody was ran off the road and almost took out the power pole. So I was just wondering if DOT is keeping track of those accidents, because I think that was one of the factors to qualify for a 3-way stop.
Yes, Brooke. So to answer your first question, by the perplexed look of me to my staff and my staff back to me, it doesn't look like we have an answer on that one, but I will look that one up with my staff. Although if it is in private property, not in public right of way, then that's probably the reason why we haven't been made privy to it. But nonetheless, I will talk to building to see if they know anything about it. And if you do know of accidents, by all means, and I think you and I have had this conversation before, hopefully that's not the case. You don't have to tell your neighbors to call in accidents because they got into accidents. But if there are accidents, they have to get reported to CHP in order for us to be able to use them as our justifications, our reasonings for a 3-way stop. Just looking at the ADTs for Saratoga right now, we're at 12,000. It's actually 12,700. It's actually gone down just a little bit from a year ago. And Finders is about the same. So frankly, right now, unfortunately, it doesn't meet the threshold. As you know, there's a warrant analysis for those of you who don't. Anytime you want to put in stop signs, it has to meet a calculation. There's an equation that says, A plus B divided by C, you put a graph, and then if that graph says you deserve a stop sign, then congratulations, you deserve a stop sign. If it doesn't, then we don't do it. El Dorado County is 100% engineering based when it comes to our decision-making, when it comes to stop signs, crosswalks, and speed limit signs, because that means there's no bias. We are putting our blinders on and allowing calculations to do the works. Now, obviously, there are aspects where if there's a medical facility, a park, a bike lane facility, or a school, we make certain exceptions, and the calculation allows us to do that. So then we are able to implement traffic control devices based off of state of California implementations. So at this point, it doesn't meet it, but let me, Brooke, talk to my traffic engineer, find out if any of those accidents were reported to CHP, and I have your email. I can let you know if they are in our system.
That would be great. But then another point to that is the CSD has now decided to move the public parkway to the intersection at Wilson and Saratoga. And like I said, there's no sidewalk from Finders to that Wilson intersection. So I would ask, I can tell you from litigating enough engineering design and then looking at what was approved for the Saratoga estates, there is absolute neglect and negligent on the part of that formula and equation. So I would just ask that maybe we revisit it, because what was put in place as the impact on the finders doesn't take into account the life and safety that needs to be taken into account. There is a major life and safety risk at that intersection. One, because the children don't have any sidewalk or protection. And two, because you have constant violations and that bike lane is not of the width needed to provide a safe area for the kids to walk.
Sure.
So I don't
Sure.
want to be the one. I have litigated now this issue in Rancho Cordova with the city. And I have, I'm about to get into it in Bass Lake. I don't want to be the one that is litigating this issue and coming after the county, because it's that egregious. And I think we really need to pay attention to these life and safety issues, especially when you have a park there.
Sure, and obviously our primary focus was for any access going to the east, to the retail. Let me look into the usage, the access, the property designation going to the west towards Folsom, and see what the plans are for that, and then get back to you, Brooke.
Yeah, because you do have Folsom who also went ahead and put in a stop sign on the other side.
Sure.
And so, they're taking the precautions there. And I think we need to do the same.
Well, but wait a minute, they did meet the warrants there. And like I said, I specifically asked them, what were your number of accidents and what was your ADT? And I get it. If I could put in a traffic stop sign or traffic signal at any location, because it meets the warrant, it makes my life so much easier. And for them at that location, they did have a school off of that location. And it's not that I don't want to do it. It just, I'm trying to keep with my, with the direction of the department where we have no biases. We are trying to keep it, just the facts. But nonetheless, if there's something I didn't look at, something I didn't look at or think about, and your point to the pedestrian usage going to the west, that is something that I off the top of my head, I wasn't thinking. I was thinking going the other way, and I knew that there was a development coming in, so I was like, they'll take care of it. But I'll look into the property to the west and get back to you.
And just a heads up. So I spoke to them as well. The school finders is the main ingress and egress for William Brooks Elementary School. The stop sign that is in the Folsom side is not the main ingress and egress for the school. It's actually for the housing development that is there. The school entrance and exit is on the other side when you travel down. What is that? No, it's not Iron Point. It's in Natomas. Or no, maybe Natoma. Yeah.
Isn't it Empire Ranch?
Oh, sorry, Empire Ranch. You're right. And then you turn off in Natoma. So that's where the school entrance is, where Finders actually is the only entry point from the Wilson. So Ridgeview, all the homes in, what is that? It's on the other. So anything off of Wilson, you have to come down and turn on to Finders to get to William Brooks.
Okay.
So there is no access point except for going all the way to either Arrowhead or Arrowhead, or you have to go to El Dorado Hills Boulevard and then turn on the road where the church is, where the entrance point is.
Lassen, yeah.
Yeah, Lassen. So obviously no one coming from Ridgeview is going to do that. If you're coming down Wilson to get to William Brooks, your only turn is there on Finders. And that's also the bus stop for the children. It's right there on Finders and Platt Circle. So your kids are having an exit point there. And if they want to go to the newly opened public park, their only way to get there is to walk on Finders to Saratoga, where there's no sidewalk. and to cross the road and be compliant with bike laws and to travel in the direction, there's no crosswalk for them to do so. So if they ride their bikes and they go towards the retail section, they literally have to cross traffic that's going 45 to 55 miles per hour.
Okay.
And you
I'll
have
definitely-
a line of sight issue too.
At Finders?
Yes. You have a major line of sight issue. So I would just
Looking
take a
west, you definitely do.
Yeah, I would take a look at all those factors because they go into the design. I appreciate the engineering side of things. Believe me, I litigate this stuff day in and day out. I'm speaking from experience of what I defend these issues. So I'm
Sure.
looking at that and I'm taking my experience and I'm saying, hands down, I couldn't defend that.
I will personally look up the calculation for the line of sight for both vertical and horizontal. And I will email that to you and see if I'm wrong, I will be the first one to be a proponent for putting in the stop sign. But I will look into it. Not that I won't, I will definitely look into it and let you know.
Yeah, and look at the rate of speed too, coming down the hill from when
I
you
will.
can see it. Because I know those distances too from all my reconstruction stuff. So you have a problem there at the rate. I mean, we can even pay for the stop sign by the number of people. If you sat a CHP right there and the number of the people that come into the bike lane, right, you get $240, probably every minute. So
Sure.
I know that it's something that should be done, and we need to do the right thing by these kids. We really do.
Thank you,
Brooke,
Brooke.
this is John Heidel. You and I were going to meet with the CSD. Should we include a representation from our DOT in that discussion, or should we do them separately?
I would love to.
Okay, we'll make that happen.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, you guys. I'm passionate about it because it's my own child that's affected. So he walks that area. It scares the heck out of me. And I want to do something about it.
We have more hands up online, but we've well exceeded our time. So I apologize. I'm hoping we can do one more this year. I'll give you a month or two off, but I would,
Sure, not a problem.
it's always very popular when you come here. People have a lot of questions and
course.
we enjoy getting the clarity.
Sure,
So
our pleasure.
I want to thank you, Adam, Zach. Go ahead and take the rest of the night off. And
So kind, boss. Thank you very much.
but no, we appreciate the dialogue and that you guys are always willing to provide some explanations and some education for us.
All right, thank you very
All right.
much. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate your time.
So I apologize to people that are waiting online. It was Jeff and Amy, but we're getting really late. So I'm going to go ahead. The next item we have tonight is I grab my screen share. Make sure I got the right one here. Okay. Josh, welcome back.
Well, thank you. Is this on okay, everyone? Can
Yeah,
you
as
hear
long
me?
as it's green, you're good to
Let
go.
me just
And
make sure I understand how, oh yeah, this works. Okay. You know, I've prepared just a 7-minute presentation, and we have up here and we have online the whole project description. So APAC will have the whole project description online. We have copies of it here. We put it in big form so that we could read it, so that you could read it as well. Because I know the little pages are a little hard. Well, I'm Josh Pane. I'm the applicant on the Town and Country Village El Dorado. I think this has been our 6th time.
yeah,
We did a J6 application. Took us about 1.5 years, almost 2 years of preparation up to the J6 in October of 2021. We were in front of the Board of Supervisors with this project. Then we started our full application in December of 2021, and we've been perfecting that application all the way up until this point. As I told you last month when I was here, that brings us to the notice of preparation point and the scoping meeting. We heard you last month about let's do it right here in this room. So we reported that back to planning, and they said, absolutely, we'll see what is available in March for our notice of preparation to do it live. I think planning would still like to do one scoping meeting online, so we'll probably do both. One in March here at some point, and then one scoping meeting online.
and to interrupt you, sorry. obviously we can do the virtual in this room. So would that be adequate to their need, or do they have a different need? They want to control the meeting. I understand that. but-
Yeah, we don't put that meeting on, the county planning
Okay.
department puts it on, but
We'll ask that question. How's that?
we've let them know, from the director on down that, hey, it's very important that we have a live meeting and they have the capability here for a Zoom. So we might do it simultaneously.
Okay.
I think that some of their thought was after the Costco meeting, they thought, well, we definitely need to do it live because we've heard from us as the applicant, you all. So, yeah, so we'll see. We're hopeful that in March we'll have a notice of preparation scoping meeting. And we told you that last month. And so hopefully we'll be moving forward. So this presentation is abbreviated from our full 19-page project description, but I've taken pieces out of it. And a couple pieces of note, I want to start with just the connectivity and the bike and hike trails. The Mahana family has been big advocates of preserving this section of the old Lincoln Highway. It runs through the
I think I'm probably driving, sorry.
are you,
Yeah, it's probably gonna be me. So let me know.
yeah,
You wanna go back or forward?
yeah, back, and I'll show.
There we go.
So, yeah, this pointer, I don't know.
Yeah,
Let me go over, do I have it?
Just grab mine. Now you two-fisted. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. So this is one of the remaining oldest pieces of the 1911, 1913 Lincoln Highway. Our project site is over here. The Mahanas have a ranch over here. And so they've been big advocates of preserving that section of the Lincoln Highway. And I want to make sure while transportation is gone now, but we've talked specifically to Raphael about preserving that section of the highway, knowing that Country Club is going to go through at some point. I've talked to the supervisor about it, and so we'll continue to advocate that. Mr. Mahana has been put as an honorary member on the Old Lincoln Highway board, the national board, because we've been such advocates. We hosted the 1919 100-year anniversary of the troops crossing the country. Dwight Eisenhower was a young colonel then. So we're big advocates of that. It doesn't have to do with our specific project, other than we're trying to get the bike trail on the original alignment of the plan, and I'll talk about that, up onto the property. And we've made note of your desire to have a landscape buffer between cars and bicycles rather than the ballards, which we probably have proposed. So we appreciate that, and our engineer, Tara, has noted that. So that piece we are very sensitive to, because our whole point is connectivity from Cameron Park over to Serrano and the whole El Dorado Hills. We think this piece is the most valuable piece. That's why in the program study area, which is the second piece of our program, we're studying a bridge crossing there. We haven't found a pedestrian, equestrian, hiking, biking bridge. We haven't found an agency yet to sponsor it. So we're still looking for that, but we think that's critical. Let me go back over to Peter. So the project overall, if you could move it forward now. This is part of the Lincoln Highway. We are at this very corner, right above where the Golden Gate Bridge is. Right in there is Placerville and this section. That section goes right across the property, and it's called, in some cases, the Old Clarksville Toll Road. And we have a historic piece from 1863 that really focuses on the Old Clarksville Toll Road. So we think it's important to really glorify that history, and that's one of our pieces. Let's move forward. Thank you. Unless I can control it. Okay, this is a map that will show all the public uses. And important to us, thank you, important to us are the churches, the Presbyterian Church here, the Holy Trinity here, Faith Episcopal, and the community, Foothill Community Church. For a hotel resort development, those are very important assets because weddings, life celebrations, family celebrations, that's all what we're talking about, both for Cameron Park and for the hills. All the infrastructure that there, when you start talking about vehicle miles traveled, we want to make sure that if there are weddings at Father Larry's Holy Trinity, that we just leave those cars there and we shuttle folks on buses down to our location right here. Same way with Reverend Tom's Faith Episcopal. We want to make sure that, yeah, the cars have moved once, they've gone to the ceremony, and now we can shuttle them down to the hotel. And that works for people who are going to stay at the resort and go to those weddings. And for Pastor Brian's Foothill Church, the same thing. So when you start talking about vehicle miles traveled, those are important pieces because that's infrastructure that's there. They're going to be in weddings there and family gatherings there. Why have them get back in their cars and go over to the reception piece of it? So we're very, very aware of that, and we're very conscious of it. So I wanted to make that point. The next slide is our inspiration. Our inspiration is the Ahwahnee Hotel. You know, when we looked at this, we looked at a lot of different resorts around the state, and we came back to one of my favorites, and I think Mr. Mahana's favorite, and that's the Ahwahnee, built in 1927. An architect was Underwood. The interior designer was a guy who traveled the world. I always thought, you know, the rugs inside, and we'll see a piece of that if you want to go to the next slide. This is the dining room.
Yosemite National Park.
Yeah, Yosemite National Park. It is one of the most fabulous pieces of architecture. Inside, if you go to the next slide, that's the dining room. These are all Persian rugs. So the connection then of that area of the world to here was very important to the family and understanding the architecture, both local lumber and the local rocks of this area. The Yosemite and the Ahwahnee are basically poured in place concrete, the sugar pines, and the local rocks. So we saw that as our historic precedent and our architectural precedent for the whole resort. Next slide, please. So this is the overview of the resort. This is Highway 50 out here, and then this is Bass Lake Road out here. The resort is surrounding the existing oak grove. If you look up on that hill, there's about 8 oak trees there. And so those will all be preserved. Those are heritage oaks. And then we'll do a chevron style on each of the hotels, 150 rooms and 150 rooms in the second hotel. The West Hotel, like the East Hotel, will have shops and boutiques and spas along the ground floor. And because of the way the elevation works, this second floor then walks right into the oak grove. And so that's how both the hotels have been designed. This piece, this octagon, is that piece you saw from the Ahwahnee. That octagon on the back of the Ahwahnee is basically the back of a church. And then they have a couple of pieces that are rectangles on the other side. Then we have 4 levels of rooms. Those rooms looking down valley from the West Hotel down to the west. We have the rooms on the interior looking into the beautiful Oak Grove. Same on the East Hotel looking into the Oak Grove. And then we have views of the Sierra on the other side. Now, the Mahana family has been in the hospitality business in the region for the last 45 years. Mr. Mahana first came here, saw this property when he was living, and some of his family still live up in Patterson and what was the other one, Mahana? Mormon Island Drive. So he saw this with his father some 45 years ago and bought pieces of it and then assembled this these acreages here. Now, in the hospitality side is this building, and that is first the porte cochere, and again, the same octagonal shape on the porte cochere and all the way up. And that's 2 restaurants on both sides. And then this is a 7,000-foot reception floor, which is the second floor, but it is at the level of the oak grove. So you'll walk right into the oak grove. And then the third floor, Mr. Mahan is big on history, the old Lincoln Highway, the old Clarksville Toll Road. And so this, we're dedicating that top floor as museum space. And we already started collecting pieces that people have donated of the history. And just talking to our historical consultant tonight, talking about the inns of Bass Lake, there were, and I think in 2021, you guys did a whole article on, I think, 20 different inns and way stations that were here. So that'll be a piece of our history, connecting that history. So that's the overall resort side. I think if we go to the next slide, this is between the West Hotel and, again, the restaurant, the reception floor, and then the museum, all looking into the Oak Grove. So it gives you a sense of the nature, the water, again, the rocks, the local rocks. We have a lot of rocks. And then some of the timber, the local timber and poured-in-place concrete. One of our hotel partners just finished that hotel, which is the Hyatt House in the old Eastern Star Temple, saving and preserving the exterior. It's right over here to the right. Saving and preserving the exterior and the front 35 feet of that building. Roger Hume, the creator of that, you may know from his work up here at La Borgata. Roger conceived the La Borgata and the whole complex, and there was a restaurant that he created, Mast Restaurant was there for a number of years. Now it's Sienna. So Roger is one of our hotel partners, and he just finished this. If any of you would like a tour of it, it's a beautiful building. He's done a wonderful job. K Street, right across from Sutter's Fort, the Eastern Star Temple, 1928. So really pleased with that. And so why don't we go to the next slide? I seem more comfortable. This is the West Hotel looking down to the Sacramento Valley. It gives you a sense of it. Again, the lumber, the local rock. And this area, I should note, our architectural team designed this as a complete breezeway through into the Oak Grove. So you'll see, we have a picture of this in our J6 application that we showed publicly. It has wood walkways across from one side, from this wing to the other wing, and you can see right through into the Oak Grove. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous look. So let's go to the next one. Okay, this is the site, 60 total acres, but we're using about 25, 26 acres for this project. Again, the hotels in a chevron fashion designed around the existing Oak Grove, the reception facility, 21,000 total feet, 7,000 feet per floor, and then obviously parking. And then this is the old Clarksville Toll Road that comes through the site, which we want to put a bicycle path on, and we'll note what you said earlier. And then bring it over here, bring the bike path from here existing where it dead ends into this traffic. I'm on my bike every day. I'm a commuter on my bike as well. So when I've been on these roads, at 50 miles an hour traffic, it's not safe. So coming in to 50 mile an hour traffic going this way is not safe. So we've requested from DOT, and we're going to request to the Planning Commission and the public that we should, as the specific plan had called for, move that trail up here and then bring it down here and go up Bass Lake Road. it would be safer than this whole intersection. In the program area, I'll show you, we have a proposed bridge here that we'd seek local, state, and federal funding, but we're looking for a local agency partner to do that. We think that connectivity then connects the old toll road very nicely, because that's where the old toll road went. You can see this line right here. That was the old trail. And it's exciting when you see these pieces, because then you see history coming alive. There's an old house right here. We don't own this, but you can see where the trail used to come. So we want to glorify that. We want to pay tribute to it historically, but in the meantime, keeping things safe. So we're looking for help and assistance. We think there's a lot of federal funds out there in the Infrastructure Act. We just need a local agency to help us with that next piece. So we're going to programmatically study that. So that's the hotel resort part. Now we have 112 cottages that we're proposing up on the top. Unusual, but I think it's going to become more common. When you develop something like this, you have to look at the employee base. And I think the county is already urging developers to do it, and in some case, may be requiring. So we're proposing 112 cottages on this drainage and to enhance that drainage, if the Corps of Engineers will allow us, with some pools of water, because it doesn't stay moist very long throughout the year. We've surveyed all the oak trees. We have some mitigation that we'll have to do, but we've weaved in and out of the oaks very nicely with our roads, and some of those plans are in the project description. So we've taken these 56 and we're proposing those as cottage housing for employees of these hotels, dedicated with deed restrictions. So half of the cottages would be deed restricted so that we have a base of housing for our employees at the hotels. The other half, these 56, would be cottages like the Silverado Country Club has cottages that they sell and then they lease out, and the hotel complex leases them out on a 1, 2, 3 night basis. So the hotels would operate that and manage that, as well as casitas along the drainage. So that's some signage you see there. Let's see what our next slide is. I'm not sure what time. This is our inspiration, that type of rustic cabin for those cabins all throughout there, both on the hotel side for the resort and for the employee side. So let's carry on. So now this is our proposed project development area. You saw it with the piece of the hotels, and you saw it with the cottages up above. And it basically is the 300 rooms. Basically, that's 181,000 feet. And then the 112 cottages that I talked about. And then obviously the open space is on our plans as well, on our detailed plans, and we'd be glad to share those bigger pieces with you. So that's the proposed project development. I'll next get into the program study area. The Mahanas didn't really want to even rezone this piece, but our attorneys, the environmental consultants said, no, you really should at least propose what might happen there or what could happen there. So I'll talk about that in a minute. This is our project for what we're going to propose the next 5 years, basically. So let's go to the next one. Now this, I put this bicycle way in because we're big on the bicycle side, because this, we heard several people here over the last 3 years said we need a John. Was it? Yeah, John was one of the biggest, but we've heard from Jeff Barker. I've been out on my bike with Jeff and other bicyclists because we hosted a complete transportation get together out on site about that bridge, that bike equestrian bridge, and the connectivity from the Cameron Park side over to this side. So it's a big piece for us, as we say here in the plan, we propose to take this piece of the bike trail off, move it as the Bass Lake Hills specific plan called for on here, and then safely get it out here up to Bass Lake Road. We'd love to, this future Class 1 bike route, we're going to study that in the programmatic area. That's this area that you'll see next. But that's our real goal is hiking, biking, and the potential of equestrian. We really think that to get down into this whole area is a jewel. I'm a lover of Yosemite, but there are areas down in that area, Carson Creek, that remind me of Yosemite. And there's a crossing where this drainage meets Carson Creek, and it's gorgeous. And we think wagon rides, horseback into that area and nature for school kids and for adults is important. When I first met with Raphael 2.5, 3 years ago, he said, well, this would be a beautiful mile and mile back ride for families because you get off of the roadway, right? And you would be above it. Even if we have to start out up here at the light and come across, at least it's safer. And we have a beautiful place where bicycles can come and hang out for all the coffee, tea, and wine and beer that folks would have. So that gives you an idea. This is some of the, you can see in our project description, all the specific items. And so let's go to the next slide. I think that's the, so this is the program study area. We had to say, what is possible there? And from the beginning, 3 years ago, when we talked about the potential of more of a village, because we consider what we're proposing is the microcosm of a village site, then we looked at this and we said, what could we think about there? We have two potentials for sewer and wastewater. One is a septic here that we're studying, and that's in our project description. So we would use this whole area, a big piece of it for septic fields and natural growth of wildflowers to the natural plants and, that are out there. The other piece is that you had seen, Stanley, a route that goes 7,000 feet in this direction to connect up to Rusey Road sewer system. So we're exploring that with EID, and we're going to study that as well. But in this area, we had to say a couple things. So what we said in the beginning is what we're saying now. Why don't you go to the next one? So this is the program study area. It's not the project development area, what we're proposing, but what might happen here, so that we could study, if someone asked, what the traffic impact is, what the environmental impact is, what all the different impacts are, we could study it. And what we were proposing there was 352 townhomes. We think townhomes in that area, some people in Serrano and the surrounding area are downsizing. So the idea of going from a 4,000, 3,000 foot home to an 1,800, 1,500 square foot is one idea we're looking at. We think that those townhomes at 1,500, 16, 1,800 also are a great starter home for folks who, young people who can't afford those 3,000 and 4,000 square foot homes. Our daughter lives in Cameron Park. I just had twin girls. They're a month old. And I get to be with them tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. But they have a duplex. So we have to find, they're a young couple and they bought a duplex. They live in half of it and they rent out the other half. So we got to find, alternatives that make sense and lower price, and that's in the $500,000, $600,000 range now is the lower price. But that would get starter homes as well and starter places. The commercial side, we're looking at 150 senior housing as we have down here, 200 apartment units, above about 80,000 square feet of retail. That would be along that old trail. So first the bike trail would come as a class 1 bike trail, And then if this, and that would happen in the first part of the development, if at some point in the future, we study this environmentally, we study the traffic, and we could see a village along that roadway, along the old Clarksville Toll Road. So that really is kind of way far out, but we've got to study it now and then take a closer look. So what do we have next? Is that okay? So I'll leave it on that. I think I took more than my 7 minutes, but let me open it up for questions if anyone has questions. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the cottages, how do people cross country club to get down to the hotel? Because that's a fast uphill, downhill road. There's no.
Back to that, yeah, yeah. That road, we're gonna study that intersection right across, if you can see it. We're proposing this road to come up and then meet up with the road up in the cottages right there. So we're gonna study that and see what it warrants for a traffic light perhaps at that location. Otherwise, they'll be coming here, crossing at the light, and we have a trail along this road all the way. So our sense is that we'll be coming with, golf carts for this side, the hotel side.
Right.
To get people up there, and that will be done along this path here, going across and going over to here. The folks who live, the hotel folks who would live up here would come across right at the light and just simply walk down into the development because they wouldn't be driving down. It's close enough to walk. So yeah, that's the plan.
I'm a rider as well, and I went up and down that road looking for some logical way to get across that thing, and it's steep and it's fast, so.
Yeah, yeah. If you don't know the location, this is about a 25-foot. When the county took this and widened this, they made about a 25-foot high hill there. We're way up here, and it goes way down. Yeah. What other questions? Yes.
I have more, I don't know if this, okay. This is actually just more of a comment of support than a question. I've lived in the Sacramento, Davis area my entire life and seen the growth happen. Davis has the Mondavi Center that came 20 years after I moved away. Then I moved to Sacramento and waited for the railways to happen and Sacramento to have some culture. And well, then I moved up to El Dorado Hills where there's just kind of not a whole lot going on except for town center. So my comment to that is just people drive from Sacramento to the outlets maybe in Folsom and then drive right through El Dorado Hills to Tahoe, Placerville, et cetera, versus this is just not a destination point. So we're missing so many tax dollars and participation within this community because of that. And having something like this, as well as being a small business owner, as a wedding and event planner for 20 years, seeing what an incredible difficulty it has been to find vendors and venues in this economy to succeed. And what do we have? We have death and taxes as well as weddings, weddings and events. This is an event. We need space to do it. And instead of going into Sacramento into a convention hall for 1,000 people, why can't we bring the population up here to have a destination, a beautiful place like El Dorado Hills? So that's just my comment.
We appreciate that. The Mahana family wants this to be a resort, not only for the whole of El Dorado Hills, but also Cameron Park. because it's right in the middle of it. As you can see, it sits right between the two communities. So we really think this is that place. I haven't talked about the wineries and the Apple Hill and all of that. We've been big supporters of the Winery Association because we think this is a great stopping off place for that, for the 72 wineries. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 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 The recorder clerk talked about their statewide convention. I think 350 people they need, and there's no real place to do it. So
They're going to be in Tall. That's the only place in this county you can do it. So.
Yeah, so in the Mahana, you know, I've known the family for 35 years, since my time on the city council way back of Sacramento. And they're a great family. They want to do the great project. And so very excited about it. What other questions? Yes, Steve.
Well, we need to hear
You need it. We hear it on Zoom.
So I just want to make a couple of comments, and one of them is about what buildings are available today in El Dorado Hills for weddings, and the number one is Serrano, and it holds 225 people. So if you want to have a really nice event, it's going to be very limited. You can go to the churches. Holy Trinity up on the hill has a big convention area and so forth, but it's not what you guys are thinking about, I don't believe. For me, I look at it and go, it's the Awani Hotel look. When you said that, you had me. But, you know, there's got to be an entrance into El Dorado Hills. And one of the entrances is Bass Lake. One of them is El Dorado Hills Boulevard, and the other one's Silver Valley. And this entrance into Bass Lake, if somebody has an idea to tell you, I think we can do better, they ought to stand up and say so now. Because eventually it's going to be something. And right now, all it is whatever it is. I mean, that little piece right there is in pretty good shape, but the other side looks awful. And as you drive down the street, there's so much of it that needs to be cleaned up, and we're trying to work on some of that group I'm involved with. So yeah, we need a much bigger place than what we have, and I hope you guys move this forward. Lastly, you ask about getting some federal funding. If we were a city, you could ask the city to go do that for you. We're not a city. We are not a legal entity. We don't have zoning ordinance abilities here, land use abilities or anything like that in El Dorado Hills. We are an orphan when it comes to that. We're hoping the county can maybe help, but the county has to do things for the whole county. So that's where we are.
The community service districts might be able to step up.
Well, who are they?
You know, because I was just reading the master plan. Jeff sent it over to me.
Yeah.
Jeff Barker, who's a bicyclist, I think you know. And he sent it over. He said, really, you should focus on this. And we're talking about the same thing that you have in your master plan. So absolutely. And I think that the CSD might be able to help with the bridge concept as well, in cooperation with the county and the Transportation Commission. So we would appreciate any help on that.
If I can add to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but on Mo's property across the way, we're bringing an event that could be an annual event here. And it's for a huge company in Sacramento. And I was struggling to find a location, and I wanted to bring it up here. And it's 1,000 people. That's 1,000 people that we're putting it all together. It's happening in June. That means 1,000 people will be exposed to the El Dorado County. That means there's more business here. That means the support's there. So that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the space that Mo is offering.
Other questions?
We're in the room, because we have a couple online. Okay, then let's go ahead and open it online. Maria's been waiting for a while. Maria, if you go ahead and unmute.
Hi, I did. Can you hear me?
We hear you fine.
And this isn't a question, and maybe this isn't even the time to make this comment, but I don't know when it will be the right time. My ears perked up when I heard that there could be the potential for housing for people looking to downsize from these very large houses we have. And Tim and I certainly do have a large house on a high maintenance piece of property. But then I also heard, well, you know, people who are downsizing might like a smaller home, 1,800, 1,500. And then you threw in the other side of the coin, or maybe the young people who are looking for a place to afford to buy into El Dorado Hills. And I'm thinking, well, why? Gosh, you're just throwing everything into the pot and stirring. There's no way that I would be interested in living in starter housing. When I downsize, I'm not looking for starter housing. I might be looking for fewer square feet that will be more manageable, but I'm not looking for, no, I'm not looking for someone who's starting out. And I just wanted to bring that up in the sense that there's everything being thrown into this project, and so much of it is appealing, but then it becomes a total turnoff when it sounds like it's a scramble to offer everybody something. And I just wanted to voice my concern at this time while I can.
Oh, we appreciate that. You know, the county has some real issues in providing housing across the board. You know, my daughter and her husband and their two new little girls, they need, you know, 1,800 feet. So this would be a starter house for them. They already have a duplex in Cameron Park, but they may like a townhome. And some folks might like to move down from 4,000 feet to 15 or 1,800. So we think it all works. It works in other places, and we think it'll work here. Yeah, yeah.
I think you also do not recognize that the Awani Hotel is a luxury property.
Yeah, I've been there, and I do recognize
So have
that.
I. And so if you are pushing a luxury, are you just pushing an exterior with some stone pillars, or are you pushing a luxury product?
Yeah, we've tried to bring in, and you can't see it, but we tried to bring in and show our partner on the hotel side to show the luxury that he has built. I don't know if we can show that.
I don't know if the camera will catch much of it.
Sorry, you guys. To show what he's done as a representation of what we want to do, which is much more than just a stone veneer. And so this is our hotel, if you can see that, Mary. So we're not just talking about stone veneer and timber. So thank you.
All right. So, hey, Dan, I think you are already unmuted. If you go ahead, we'll take you next.
Yes, hi, I'm Dan Mueller. Thanks for the time here to address this group. I'm a commercial real estate broker in the El Dorado Hills region in Sacramento. We actually have an office in the El Dorado Hills Town Center off of Post Street. And I feel this project would be phenomenal for our region insofar as it will allow a place to stop. I'm also a cyclist, a place to rest. But my wife, as an example, loves to go up to Apple Hill quite often. We often have guests who come visit us, and we recommend that as a place of destination on their way to Tahoe, along with other, attractions and smaller vendors that we have in this area on the way to Tahoe. And they oftentimes miss Apple Hill. They don't actually have a chance to go there because it is a little bit off of the road. I believe that a hotel like this with smaller retail spaces, I believe there's over 24,000 square feet that would be available here, broken down in 800,000, 1,600 square foot sizes would be very attractive to not only Apple Hill vendors, which were touched on earlier, but also wineries and other uses and trinkets and so forth that you'd find in a luxury hotel, that you'd find in a tourist destination. It's really hard to find small spaces for the users to go into. So for example, builders just don't build that. They are very profit driven. They have a certain square footage that they build that gives them good returns. And in this particular case, the developer, from what I'm seeing, is looking to build smaller spaces. These would be great for wine tasting rooms, hors d'oeuvre rooms, and even groups like Apple Hill, these families to come down and have a location that is accessible perhaps more easily off the freeway, and also give the hotel guests who would otherwise maybe never even look to stop in Placerville further, an opportunity to taste the historic Placerville cuisine, the Placerville ambiance, and have that brought into a location which really is a beautiful overlook in this sort of piazza setting. Cyclists could go there and enjoy some food. And it looks like the Mohana families thought the access quite well through, obviously with input of the municipality to make it a seemingly wonderful, seamless project. But yeah, the developers don't build this type of stuff. And I think from the standpoint of a retail broker, this would be phenomenal in exposing the traffic that just goes between the Bay Area, San Francisco, Sacramento, up to the Tahoe region, an opportunity to really see what this community in El Dorado Hills really has to offer. And otherwise they just buzz right past it because they're such in a hurry. And here they could stay, they could go to Tahoe, go ski, go to Placerville, spend some time and some money there, a few days there, and be in this beautiful hotel and have access back to wherever they're going in a fashion that they can make, let's say, their Monday work week, if that was of importance. But from a standpoint of looking at a hotel, I think personally it's a very beautiful project and would be a fabulous cornerstone for this great community that we all live in and care so much about and cherish. All the things that are raised here are, I think, of importance, but I think this project really does offer the community an opportunity to have a platform that it otherwise would not have. No one's built this so far. This is a phenomenal project. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. So we got two more that we need to get to, and we're going to start with Joe Windmiller. Joe, you should be allowed to unmute now. Joel, sorry.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Yes, I'm Joel Windmiller. I'm the current California chapter of the Lincoln Highway Association, and I'd like to make a few comments if I can. Very short. Mo Mohana has been associated with the Lincoln Highway Association for a while, and he's always been very helpful in keeping the old highway in front of his ranch open and basically accessible, and he's basically really wanting to preserve it. And the Lincoln Highway Association wants to preserve as much of the highway as they can in the state, even though we have a tremendous amount of development in this state. That section happens to be one of the longest sections of original paving still around. So basically, I just want to say Mo Mohana is a great person to work with, and the project he's proposing, we are in favor of. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for allowing me to say something.
All right. Well, thank you, Joel. Thank you for your patience too. The last one that we have online, Jeff B, is it Jeff Barker?
Yeah, that's me.
Awesome, Jeff. Go.
Hey, thanks for having this meeting. I've been following this for quite some time as as El Dorado Hills keeps getting built out and built out and built out. I don't really see developers think about non-motorized connectivity for cyclists and hikers and even trail runners or runners in general, whether it's natural surface or paved. So I really appreciate Mr. Mohana and Josh paying so much attention to some of the things that come up all the time. In the last 2 or 3 El Dorado Hills updated master plans. I personally, being an El Dorado Hills resident up near Francisco and Green Valley, I think this beautiful looking design is going to be a hub for not just visitors that come to our area, but also locals that are looking for a little adventure to go here or there. I mean, town center has some neat stuff, but for off-road, non-motorized connectivity, it's like you go down there and that's it, you turn around. Whereas this hub, you have some stuff going on up in Cameron Park that connects, keep going west to Silva Valley, hopefully over all the way to EDH Boulevard. You know, if you're visiting and staying at the hotel, you've got a pretty quick way to get up to Bass Lake, our new park, which is awesome. And then eventually when Marble Valley is developed south of 50, just south of this, it's just a perfect location for a lot of outdoor recreation and healthy exercise. And I appreciate this this project to the nth degree, and the care that the developers have towards trails and connectivity and history. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Joe.
You know, I just want to reemphasize, because this was kind of the first piece that we looked at, was this old, part of the old Lincoln Highway, part of the old Clarksville Toll Road. And then if you ever have a chance, Bill Parker and Serrano, they have 1,000 acres in here of open space that we really need to provide connectivity to, because he's done such a beautiful job of keeping all of this up in here, 1,000 acres, and trails up there. Jeff was the first to bring it to my attention that they were losing the connectivity, the potential loss of connectivity over here because of these projects. So I've started talking to those folks, at Angelo over at AKT and Bill Parker, and they're more than willing to look at that and that connectivity because they see the importance of this connectivity. But this is probably the most pristine and beautiful area down in here. And we want to see if we can preserve this stretch of the old Lincoln Highway as that new country club comes in. So we've made it known to the supervisor, we've made it known to the director of DOT that that's a big priority, because we think this resort will only be as good and as strong if we have that nature area to make sure that people can hike over to. It's a beautiful area. And if you want to go on a little hike, I'll take you down there. I've been on my bike over there, but I'll take you over too, because we think that connectivity to this is very important for the local folks in the area. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Yeah.
So with that.
And I should make mention, since I have this on my hand, I was trying to remember it. This is the master plan. In our J6 application, and we don't have it tonight, but we have 4 different trails that cut through right at this location, just like the master plan shows, right through the property. And it seems to be a place, a meeting place. And what we're getting from our historic consultant is that it's a meeting place because of Clarksville was there at one point with 10,000 people in Clarksville. And as the 2021 newsletter that Kathy wrote, upwards of 10, 12, 15 way stations or inns. Mormon Tavern, their dance floor was 70 by 100. Happens to be the same size that we've designed the reception facility. It's about 7,000 feet, 70 by 100. But I was shocked when I read that Mormon Tavern had a dance floor and a saloon, obviously, 7,000 feet. So we want to pay tribute to that, and we want to show that history here and the connectivity here. And that's what we're trying to do. So I don't know if there are any other questions.
Hey, John, I just,
Oh, go ahead, Brooke.
sorry, I just wanted to throw out there, I know all these ideas you've tossed out, and I like the ideas, but also looking at the sports tourism and what we could potentially maybe meet with CSD on coordinating some events now with a larger venue for people, so you could host more tournaments. And I know you have the marathon that's in Folsom, but some of these things, I just didn't know if that had been something that was looked at and the income that would be given back to the county on that level.
Awesome. Thank you, Brooke.
Stanley Price again. I see the employees' housing. I don't see a way for the employees to walk to work. And you mentioned a golf carts, and where you pointed was on the bike path, and
They would get that sheet back up.
but don't neglect to allow the workers to walk to work.
Yeah, I mean, that was our whole point. So if you look on that sheet, this one here, I think we have it, that one. I had talked about this trail that we have all along here. There's an internal trail in here, but there's also a trail all along the frontage here to get over to this light and to go across. If we don't have a light here, that would be the route. If at some point there's a light that is required here, then that would be a direct route and coming down this road, and that's a bike trail going up as well. So, yeah.
When you build a bike trail, make sure it's got pavement that's 12 feet wide. Folsom's going, all the new ones, in
12
Folsom
instead
are going
of
to be
8?
12 feet. Eight's too narrow. And then they were originally designed and shown to have natural pavement up for walking on either side of the pavement. And that way you can actually get a multi-use trail where just a paved way is not good. You shouldn't mix wheels and walking in the same space. And the speed differential between bicycles and walking is significant. So it's thanks.
Would you consider a roundabout rather than a light?
You know, we haven't, but in our traffic study that will be starting here, we could always take a look at that if our traffic consultant sees that's Dr. Tom Kier is doing the traffic analysis. So we can make note of that in our traffic meeting and see if that roundabout would be a better solution than a light, you're saying. You usually would have.
And I don't know if roundabouts would require that. And now, or if it's new construction, I don't know if this whole issue of warrants and meeting criteria would come into everything.
Okay, so we're 40 minutes over on our allotted time. We wanted to thank you guys for coming down and being patient, waiting for the DOT discussion to end. And of course, you know, you've been here many times before. You have an open door to come back and talk about it. We're looking forward to.
Hopefully next we'll be here with our NOP scoping meeting. And what that means is it's an opportunity for the public to come in and say, we'd like this, this, or this to be studied in the environmental analysis. And then from there, it would go to a draft EIR somewhere down the road, and then a draft EIR for the final EIR before it goes to the planning commission. We hope there's a 10-day window there, but we come back again for that. So those three. But if anyone has any questions or would like to come out and see the site, would like to see our partners hotel down there, please call me. And please take a project description. We'll have it online too.
Yeah, we'll have a copy as well. Right, so yeah, if you need to reach Josh through email, you can email me. My email address is on the agenda, and I can pass it along, put you guys in touch. Thank you very much for your patience tonight. Thank you, everybody in the room, for their patience tonight and for your good questions. The next item on our agenda, we got a couple of things we're just going to get through. So the first thing is we did want to talk a little bit about Project Frontier. The APAC officers have had an initial discussion with the project applicant, and we're talking about the 208 acres of the de-annexed property at the south end of the business park. We had talked about it a little bit tonight in a roundabout fashion. So on Latrobe Road, so on the west side, when it was de-annexed, the zoning did not change. It's industrial R&D. The original intent by the property owner who purchased it was to, they had proposed a 700 to 900 residential unit specific plan called Creekside Village. And so that would require a zoning change for residential and open space. That project, they indicated that as their initial analysis was for traffic, that with 700 to 900 houses, it would be less traffic than if they built up the full 200 acres as was intended back in 1980. We'll call it 86, be fine.
80 was the actual date.
Okay, so 1980. I just remember the marketing in about 84. I do the CMOS back then. So that in the interim, they had somebody who was looking for this sort of space for a distribution center, and they're talking, it's a large use distribution center. They have an NDA where they can't disclose who the eventual tenant is. We're trying to be respectful of that. And but they did meet with us on the phone. They will be here next month in March to talk about it. We'll probably schedule just this project and nothing else, unless something else comes up. Sorry. So they're proposing 2 buildings. One building is in their application is called a 5-story distribution center. They say 2,800,000 square feet on building 1. Building 2 would be a 1-story distribution building, which 1.3 million square feet. But there's some discrepancy about those actual numbers based on what we saw in a TAC meeting notification today. So we don't know the actual number, but we're hoping when we talk to them in March, we'll have more clarification. So this is a project site at the south end of the business park. And let's see, my mouse works in here. The creek that runs through it, which was why it was going to be called Creekside Village, their development for the buildings are proposed on the south side of that. This is Royal Oaks Drive, if I'm remembering correctly. So the southern end of Blackstone, they propose to run a road inside here that would run along parallel with the creek. It would have no connectivity into the rest of the business park. They believe that they would probably re-annex the property into the business park, but that's to be determined as the project moves along. On the south side of the project here, they had proposed a traffic light here at Wetzeloviet where it comes to Latrobe Road. And again, as Tim discussed, they're proposing to expand Latrobe Road from Golden Foothill Parkway, south to about this location at Wetzeloviet. So here we go. And that's sort of the layout of what they're talking about, what the building would look like. I think it's about 575 feet set back from the road. Our initial discussion with them, I know they had discussed 90-foot building for that 5-story, but they also told us it could probably be 110. It's a tall building. They intend to provide some mitigation for the disrupting the view shed with landscaping, very mature, large trees, and that actually the project site, the project is lower than Latrobe, so it would drop down a little bit in addition to being screened by landscaping. This is from their project website, which is projectfrontierinfo.com. And that's just a better layout of what the buildings would look like. You have Royal Oaks Drive at the top up here. That new road would follow the creek. It would not connect into the rest of the business park. The smaller building is the single-story west building. The east building is 5 stories, what they suggested, 110 feet tall, and below grade here. And then the other traffic light would be at Wetzeloviet on the south end, and it comes here and it loops back around. Or maybe that's a new road access. It's unclear from this drawing. Yeah.
But what they did say, John, is that it would connect to the road that would be from the new Heritage 11 development.
Yeah, thank you. So this road, is it Heritage 3? Is that what it's called there? It's called many things.
Yes, this misnomer, 11 or 3.
Okay. So anyway, but that's an approved project. It's
correct, but there is a road to be put in right below that they're going to plan to connect to. Where that goes beyond that, we don't know yet.
To be determined. And again, this is just initial conversation they had to let us know that they wanted to come talk about it. This is also from their project website. They're talking about 2,000 employees. We had asked if it was going to be a 24-hour operation. They said it would probably be 2 shifts. So you have a morning, and they did intend that they wanted to minimize their impact on the schools in the private schools in the business park, whether it's John Adams Academy or there's a couple, Marble Valley, and there's one other one I'm blanking on. But So they're.
Golden
the
Hills.
Express. Thank you, thank
Yep.
you, Brooke. So, and I always want to call it Golden Sierra, like this high school, but it's not. So Golden Hills. So those are all schools we know right now, their impacts for the traffic for those schools right now. So there we go. But they're not proposing to change the zoning. They're looking at a conditional use permit, and I believe the conditional use permit is to address the height issue in terms of what's allowed and how it's zoned right now from that 1980 plan and also the existing county standards. So that's what the conditional use permit is primarily for. There we go. This is what we know right now. And in this document, it says the combined total would be 1.7 million square feet. The project application is like over 4 million square feet. And the new TAC meeting information, I didn't see it today, but it's closer to 5.
It's 4.8 million square feet. For those who don't know, the TAC is a technical advisory committee. It's run by the planning department. Basically, what they've done is invite all the infrastructure people. So PG&E, El Dorado Irrigation, AT&T, schools, fire departments, they all get invited because they have technical requirements when a project of this size is being built. So they want to find out, again, I'm more familiar with fire department, but what access roads, have the roads that they've proposed to turn around the corner of the building, are they wide enough for our equipment to get in? Because if our equipment can't get in and there's a fire there, there's a big problem. So the people that provide that technical input, they get a chance to look at the project early and make suggestions to bring it up to their codes and their standards. So that meeting is scheduled for February 22nd.
We'll write a letter.
Yeah.
So we get notice on the TAC meeting. We're not invited to participate because we're not an agency, we're advisory. So we will write a letter and provide some feedback.
And the other thing is, go to our El Dorado Hills APAC website. The entire application is online. It's very detailed. There's a full biological resources and fish and game type information as well. There's the required county oak tree study. They've identified on these 200 acres, 6 oak trees that are measurable and are required to be reported on. They've done the cultural study. There are Indian grinding rocks out there, but those rocks are in a location, you don't know on the map again, but they're in the southern part away from where any building is going to be going on. So this will give you a good sense of what's being requested. There are some things about the size of the building. I mean, when the application says 4,200,000 square feet and the technical advisory committee notice from planning says it's 4.8 million square feet, 600,000 square feet is a big building. So we want to get, they should be clear as to what it is because they should have different information in different parts depending on who's looking at it and where it's located. They may not, they've applied for a conditional use permit. They at least believe initially, unless planning sees something, once they review the application that triggers a requirement of a EIR at all, there will not be an EIR.
Well, yeah, and they might not even file that based on, yeah, it's zoned for that use. The one exception is the building height. And that's what the conditional use permit is addressing. So it's zoned for that usage. And it's been planned since 1980. It just has not developed.
There may be some drainage issues, since the drainage will go into the Caution Creek.
So we have to ask these questions because it's conceivable that I think right now planning is assuming that it's a by rights project. And, but they're reaching out. They understand that it'll be controversial, that people have questions. That's why we're going to have them here in March, and that's on the 15th. So
They're intending to re-annex into the business park.
they said they might, was what they said to us.
The business park has to, they said they can do it, but the business park has to invite them.
I understand they were planning on doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes it cleaner, but they don't have to.
So Chief Johnson's here, and I've talked to Chief already about some of these items, but Chief, I'm sure you have something to let us know.
I always do. Yes. Good afternoon or good evening. It's been a long
Good
day.
tomorrow.
Good evening. Chief Johnson, El Dorado Hills Fire Department Fire Chief. This is we're always going to be ready to take on any task that comes that we're required of. Obviously, a project of this size and complexity brings a lot of different challenges for the fire department. And so we look forward to sitting down and figuring out exactly the size of the building, complexity, the types of uses and things like that. One thing to note, because it's come up a couple different times, is that this project won't connect to the existing business park. And I would just be careful with that, because when you look at the road system, having a connection through there via an emergency vehicle access area will be significantly helpful for the fire department in reducing the time to get to the facility. If not, you're going all the way out Golden Foothills Parkway or investment to get down and around. And so I don't want people to think it's a bait and switch. They said there wasn't going to be a connection. There might be a requirement from the fire department to have an EDA in that area for access, quicker access to the facility. Thank you.
Among other things.
Among other things.
So, thank you, Chief. So this is a project, this is what we know about it right now. We'll learn more as they come and talk to us next month, so come with your questions. And asking those questions and getting them to planning is important. So we talked about some of the local jobs that they're proposing and the consistent zoning. So let's blaze through subcommittees. We talked last month about non-project specific subcommittees. So we've had some volunteers for environmental review subcommittee, Bob, Tim, George, Steve, and Janet. Let's see, do you have Janet? Okay. Circulation, traffic, transportation, pedestrian. Me, Bob, George volunteered for that as well.
And John, we have several people here from Blackstone here.
So we need your names and your email addresses. And like I say, it's like the mafia once you're in. Sorry. So residential, Bill Knox had emailed me and said he was interested in looking at that. I put myself down for the utility subcommittee. That's primarily EID, PG&E, those type of things. Recreation subcommittee, Bob started with that. I'll probably pitch in with that, and I'm sure more people will be interested in looking at that. And community plan subcommittee, Bob as well, and Bill Knox. And that's the community plans that the board of supervisor had funded 2 years ago. Again, I think recently, last year, community planning, or it started with Shingle Springs, and we're going to talk about historical districts and. Well, it's fits and starts, and we had COVID. Yeah, COVID killed it. So sorry. We had APAC members, Brooke and Joel Wiley, both were volunteers on that effort. And in whatever fashion that comes back, we thought, well, last time we were kind of hands off. We had APAC members that were part of that process. This time we might want to provide a little more feedback from APAC in terms of if that starts. So that's way down on the to-do list. So if you have an interest in these non-project subcommittees, again, my email is on here, info@edhapac.org. Somebody will answer you. And then it's the same with any other project that we're reviewing. If you have an interest, if you're curious, you want to pitch in, even if it's a little piece, we want the help. So, and then the next item would just be, we had scheduled out our meeting dates for the year. I was talking to Stephanie here, scheduling the meetings, and we decided, let's go ahead and try to reserve the room for the entire year. We had about 6 months where we had conflicts. So we try to meet on the second Wednesday of the month. In March, we'll be meeting on the 15th in this building. On April, it was going to be the 12th, now it's the 19th, the following Wednesday. May is unchanged. June is changed to June 21st, start of summer. It was the 14th. So we're moving up to the third Wednesday on those months. The one exception is in July, where there are no Wednesdays available to us. We'll be meeting on July 18th. And then September, we're moving it to the following Wednesday as well, October. So those new dates are there. We do have, all our meeting dates are on the APAC website under events or on the calendar. So you can take a peek there if you really want to get excited about future APAC meetings. We might just do them all tonight. And then, so again, the way you become a voting member is you volunteer to work on a project review, a subcommittee, and then we help you as best we can. And again, I always say the caveat is you might have a better way to do it than we've considered. So it's just a collaborative process, and what we've learned we'll share with you, and maybe you can educate us, and we can make the process better. The important thing is that we're providing that resident feedback to the process. So, and then to get your public comments in advance of a meeting, you could email edhapac.comment@gmail.com. 5 p.m. the Monday before the meeting. And we'll get those questions and have them here. Try to keep it to the agenda topics on those questions. With that, let's go home.
Okay.
All right. So I appreciate everyone staying for a very long night. We had some very good conversations. It was unfortunate we had to put them both together in this month, but the timing was the timing. We'll do better, and next month we'll do a single project. So,
So you think?
well, that's the plan.
Thank you, John. Thank you all.
Brooke.
Thanks, John.